In a baseball game, one team scores a run and the crowd starts yelling at the other team's pitcher, calling him a clown with no skill. Mihashi is the one pitching and he doesn't feel confident because he thinks he's really bad at it. He looks over at Hadake, hoping for some kind of support, but Hadake doesn't look at him at all. Mihashi stands there for a long time to throw the ball, but when he finally throws the pitch, the batter hits it right away. Afterward, Mihashi walks around his school, which is Nishi High School, and recalls his old teammates discussing his transfer to another school. Mihashi wonders even if he joins the high school baseball team, nobody will let him play as a pitcher. However, Mihashi walks towards the baseball field and is surprised to find it empty. He suddenly feels a hand on his shoulder and turns around to see a baddie with a creepy smiling face. After that, she grabs Mihashi and pulls him to a different spot while Mihashi keeps telling her to stop. But she doesn't listen and instead brings him over to meet the new player on the Nishi baseball team. She asks Mihashi what position he plays, and he answers that he's a pitcher. After hearing that, Momo gets excited and says they've been searching for a pitcher, and now their team is finally complete. And she tells them her name is Coach Momo and explains that she also graduated from this school. She then goes on to remember everyone's name but one guy, who seems to have a bit of an attitude, says he changed his mind about joining the team just because the coach is a woman. In response, Momo picks up a bat and shows off her amazing baseball skills, surprising everyone. After showing her skills, Coach Momo says she's going to make the team some fresh orange juice by squeezing her factories, which freaks out everyone. After that, Abe asks Mihashi to show him his big monster and how he pitches, but Mihashi starts thinking that he's an idiot for even saying he was a pitcher in the first place. He suddenly begins to cry and drops to his knees, saying that the only reason he got the ace position at Mahoshi was because his grandfather owns the school. He also admits that his pitches are really slow and that he never stepped off the mound, which made his team lose for 3 years straight. But Abe tells him that a pitcher should never step off the mound and says he actually likes that part about Mihashi, even though he still thinks Mihashi is kind of a lone otaku with no baddies. However, Mihashi finally agrees to show Abe how he pitches, and when he does, Abe is shocked at how good it is. He asks Mihashi where he learned to pitch like that. Abe then asks what kinds of pitches Mihashi can throw, and Mihashi says he can throw quite a few different ones. After that, Abe turns to Hanai and challenges him to a 3-at-bat match, and Hanai agrees. Abe asks Mihashi to sit on the bench next to him and asks what signs he is used to so Abe could remember them and it would be easier. Mihashi tells Abe that he has no signs that he is used to since the catcher disliked him and refused to give him any signs. Soon after, the 3-at-bat challenges start and Abe signals for a fastball and Hanai swings but misses. Then Abe calls for a curveball to the low outside corner but Hanai hits it, but it's a grounder and he's out. Abe asks for a fastball down the middle but Mihashi hesitates, but remembers Abe believes in him, so he throws it. It turns out that Hanai swings and misses it, then he falls down, leaving Mihashi shocked. However, Mihashi keeps following Abe's signals, trying to pitch just like Abe wants. Hanai struggles to hit Mihashi's pitches and is getting frustrated. Then Mihashi throws a fastball that goes high, and it really confuses Hanai. He grabs Mihashi and asks why the pitch looks like it's floating. But Abe explains that because the ball doesn't drop like people expect, it looks like it floats. After seeing that, Abe starts thinking that Mihashi might be able to help the team make it all the way to Kashian. Afterward, Coach Momo tells Mihashi that if he wants to be the ace, he has to start thinking like one. She says that during Golden Week, they'll go to a training camp, and after that, they'll have a practice game against Mahoshi. When Mihashi hears the name Mahoshi, he suddenly has a scary flashback and starts freaking out. But Momo hits him on the head with a bat and yells at him, telling him to change his personality. The next day, Momo cleans a window, realizing that she can now get the best pitching machine they can afford. She realizes that she has saved enough money for the baseball club and is happy that they will be going to training camp. The next day, everyone is on their way when Tajima shouts that he forgot to play with his Excalibur sword last night. Meanwhile, Abe and Hanai talk about their 3-at-bat challenge, and Hanai feels like he's not as good as Tajima and is a little disappointed in himself. Mr. Shiga gives Abe some medicine and asks him to take it to Mihashi. When he gives it to him, he tells Mihashi that he should have taken motion sickness medicine before they left. But Mihashi replies he's been having trouble sleeping lately because of what Momo said about his personality. Later, at the training camp, Momo tells the team to clean the house and gather plants for dinner. Everyone starts working, but the instructor notices Mihashi isn't doing anything and is being lazy. Later, when the team goes out to find plants, Momo tells Mihashi and Abe to do something else instead. After that, Coach Momo asks Mihashi what his top pitching speed is, and he says it's around 100 to 101 kilometers. Coach Momo laughs at how slow that is, but Abe thinks Mihashi's good control makes up for not being fast. Then, she tells Mihashi to try doing his wind-up while standing on a block of wood. Mihashi tries it, but he loses his balance and falls, which makes Coach Momo laugh again. After that, she tells Abe to wear a helmet and gives Mihashi a speed gun. Coach Momo then throws a pitch and the speed gun shows 122 kilometers. She tells Mihashi that since they're almost the same height, he should be able to throw just as fast if he works hard. Afterward, Momo gives Mihashi a dumbbell which is used by femboys and tells him to hold it while throwing a ball. However, Mihashi struggles to pitch due to the weight of the dumbbell, missing Abe's mitt. Since Abe wants a pitcher with good control, he isn't too impressed with Mihashi's wild pitches. However, Coach Momo advises Mihashi to focus on practicing his wind-up on the woodblock instead of throwing pitches, so he can save his energy for the upcoming game. Later that night, everyone starts cooking dinner, but Tajima tries to sneak some food. Just as he does, Mr. Shiga grabs his hand with chopsticks and starts explaining how brain hormones work. Right then, Abe and Mihashi return from their training, and everyone sits down together to eat. Momo then says thanks for the food and everyone follows. Afterwards, everyone digs into the food. Hanai and the rest of the team start talking about how Shiga knows so much about the brain, even though he's a math teacher. Sakiguchi says that Shiga has been to many schools and seminars, but not all of them were related to math. However, Hanai asks how Sakiguchi knows all of this, and Sakiguchi replies that he practiced over spring break and overheard some things. He also mentions that Shiga asked Coach Momo to start the team. He adds that Momo even works part-time jobs to support the team, with Tajima commenting that Momo is a really nice person. Afterward, Shiga suddenly bursts in and gets in one of the beds and tells them all to go to sleep, but they say that there is not enough space for their bed. Shiga tells them that they may be a little young, but people only truly understand each other when they share the same bed. However, Hanai throws a pillow at Shiga which causes a pillow fight. Meanwhile, Abe is sitting outside playing with his monster and thinks about how bad all the pitchers are. Coach Momo appears and asks Abe how Mihashi did, but Abe says that he is doing what she told him to. However, Momo replies that whenever a team is made, 2-3 players always stand out, but those 2 or 3 players cannot win a game. She said that the 3 outstanding players of the current team are Tajima, Hanai, and him. However, Abe says that Coach Momo once told him he doesn't understand what it really means to be a catcher. He gets frustrated and raises his fist in anger, asking her to help him understand. But before he can say more, she grabs his hand with both of hers, which makes Abe blush. She holds on tighter and firmly tells him that he will understand. Abe, a bit confused, asks what she wants him to do. The next day, Momo and Mihashi are practicing in pitch when she asks him about what kind of pitcher was the guy he competed against in Mahoshi. He tells them that his strikeout pitch is the forkball. Mihashi remembers how he stayed on the mound despite the fact that Hadake and Kanu would stay after practice so Hadake could try and catch Kanu's forkball. Later after dinner, Momo holds a board which contains the numbers from 1 to 25, and she tells everyone to touch and say aloud each number in order as fast as they can. She believes that it will improve their observation skill, and that it will help react faster from signals. After that, Momo asks if anyone wants to give the exercise a try and Tajima quickly volunteers. To everyone's surprise, Tajima easily finishes it in just 7.9 seconds. Seeing how fast he did it, Hanai and the others start wondering if Tajima was really pointing at the numbers or just guessing. Then Momo tells the team to partner up and try the exercise 3 times each. She adds that the player with the best time will get to choose the batting order for the next game, which makes everyone nervous. When Hanai takes his turn, he manages to complete it in 18.6 seconds. Meanwhile, Mihashi is lost in thought, too busy thinking about something to notice what's going on around him. Abe snaps him out of his daze and asks if he's been sleeping any better lately. Then Abe asks if Mihashi is having any fun at all, since he always seems super nervous during practice. He also tells Mihashi that whenever he tries to talk to him, Mihashi hardly says anything back. But this crybaby again starts to cry and Abe yells at him, saying it looks like he is bullying him. The next morning on the Mahoshi baseball field, Momo tells the team to start warming up. She also notices that the team doesn't look nervous at all even though it's their first game as a team, with the exception being Mihashi, who is losing accuracy not because he is throwing harder but because he is nervous. Mahoshi walks on the field and Kanu tries to greet Mihashi, but Mihashi runs off somewhere. However, Hadake follows Mihashi, who is hiding in the bushes, trying to stay out of sight. Haddock says that Mihashi still talks the same as always and asks why he would come to play in a game against people who already know how bad he is. Just then, Abe suddenly shows up and Haddock walks away. After that, Abe asks Mihashi if Haddock said anything to threaten him. Mihashi says that Haddock is actually a nice guy, but he wanted Kanu to be the pitcher since everyone liked Kanu more than Mihashi. Afterward, Mihashi and Abe run into a guy who speaks Kansai, and Abe asks Mihashi if Mahoshi is the kind of school to recruit players from the outside. Mihashi says that they have a preferred athletes program, but they don't usually come from far away. Afterward, Abe asks Shinuka for the roster, and Mihashi remembers overhearing his teammates discussing an awesome new guy coming that year. Abe asks Mihashi who he doesn't know on the list, and Mihashi says he doesn't know batters 4, 6, 7, and 8. Just then, as Kanu gets ready to pitch, he calls out to Mihashi, and Abe quickly notices how Kanu is holding the ball and realizes that he's about to throw a forkball. The team starts wondering why he would show a pitch like that during just a practice game. Abe turns to Tajima and asks if he thinks he can hit the forkball. Right then, Momo shows up and says she's counting on Tajima because this is an important game. She tells everyone that if they can win this match, Mihashi will officially become their ace pitcher. She then asks the team who wants Mihashi as their ace, and Abe grabs Mahashi's shoulder and shouts that he does. After that, Mihashi watches Kanu pitch and starts to worry because he knows he has to face Haddock next. Right then, Abe tells Mihashi to go practice with Izumi. Meanwhile, Mihashi and the players from Mahoshi act like they were never even on the same team before. Abe comments that the Mahoshi team still seems to hold a grudge against Mihashi. Mihashi quietly agrees in his mind, thinking that he probably deserves the way they're treating him. Later on, the game finally starts with Sakiguchi as the first batter. He tries to bunt the ball toward third base, but Kanu quickly grabs it and throws it to first, getting him out right away. After that, Oki takes his swing but also ends up getting out. Then it's Abe's turn to bat, but he strikes out as well. When Abe returns to the bench, Mihashi is already there, so Abe tells him that he knows Mihashi is just hiding behind him again. After that, it's Mahoshi's turn to pitch, and before he starts, Abe tells him to do his best and give it everything he has. The batter stepping up to hit is Miyakawa, and Abe signals for Mahoshi to throw a fastball with full power. Mahoshi tries, but he can't fully control it, and the pitch ends up flying straight at Miyakawa, who quickly dodges out of the way. Right after, Miyakawa's teammates start yelling at him, saying that Mahoshi's throw couldn't hurt him even if it hit, so he shouldn't be scared. But Miyakawa feels like the pitch was faster than before, which makes him wonder if Mahoshi has improved. Mahoshi then figures out that Abe wanted him to throw it outside the strike zone on purpose, just to mess with the batter's concentration. For the next pitch, Mahoshi throws a slider that starts looking like a strike but turns into a ball, aiming to confuse Miyakawa even more. Afterward, the next inning begins with Tajima stepping to bat for the first 2 pitches, and he doesn't move at all. Then, the third ball pitches and Abe starts to think that the next one will be a forkball. Just as he expected, Kanu throws a forkball and Tajima hits it cleanly, managing to make it safely to second base. After that, Hanai steps up to bat and Momo gives him the signal to swing freely. Just like Tajima, Hanai decides to wait for the forkball. When it finally comes, he swings hard but completely misses it. In the end, Hanai strikes out, and during that time Tajima takes the chance to steal third base. When Hanai returns to the bench, Momo asks him why he let 2 good pitches go by without swinging. But Hanai replies that he thought he could make contact if he waited for the right one. Later on, Coach Momo gathers the team and explains that even though Tajima is an amazing player, his small body makes it hard for him to hit home runs often. What she really wants them to understand is that Tajima can't win games all by himself, and if they want to score runs, the whole team needs to support him. While she's saying this, Sayama hits a fly ball and gets out, and then Izumi strikes out, which wastes the chance Tajima gave them with his double. Abe tells Mihashi that he will try and get as much data out of Oda as possible, and that Mihashi feels really impressed and thankful to have Abe on his team. Mihashi throws a high fastball outside the strike zone, but Oda doesn't even try to swing. Abe tells Mihashi to throw the same kind of pitch again but lower this time. Oda still doesn't move and gets another ball. Mihashi throws the same pitch one more time, and Oda hits it easily, but the ball goes foul. However, Mihashi starts to get nervous, but he remembers Abe's words about Oda possibly getting a hit. That helps him calm down as he realizes he's not alone like he was in middle school. This time, Abe is here with him. Abe thinks Oda only missed the hit because he swung too hard. Looking at Oda's long arms, Abe figures that Oda is the type of batter who can hit home runs, which makes him different from someone like Tajima. Afterward, Oda asks Abe to throw a fastball and promises that he won't hit it. Abe realizes that someone must have told Oda to watch Mihashi's fastball closely. Instead of following the request, Abe calls for a screwball, low and inside. Even though Oda wasn't lying about not swinging, he ends up striking out anyway. Afterward, Oda goes to practice with Kanu. He tells him that Mihashi's fastball looked like it was floating. Kanu says that pitches that slow can't really float, and Oda questions what Kanu actually knows. Kanu admits that Mihashi's fastball isn't as slow as it looks, it's faster than a typical slow pitch. Then Headache steps up to bat, and Mihashi throws another screwball. Headache gets confused and thinks it's a fastball. Afterward, Oda asks Kanu what he meant when he said Mihashi's pitch is faster than a slow fastball. Kanu explains that back in junior high, whenever he asked Mihashi to throw a fastball, Mihashi would throw these strange, awkward pitches. When Kanu brought it up to the rest of the team, they dismissed him and thought he was imagining things. Now believes that the uniqueness of Mihashi's fastball comes from a mismatch between his arm speed and throwing angle. Because of this, the pitch ends up with less backspin than a typical fastball and drops more than expected. He recalls that Mihashi actually managed to get some strikeouts with it, but the team chalked it up to their opponents being weak rather than recognizing the pitch's unusual effectiveness. Back at Mahoshi, the team is used to Mihashi's weird pitches, so during batting practice, they can always hit them without much trouble. But Oda says that it's not really helping during the actual games. Kanu thinks the problem has more to do with how the catcher is calling the pitches. He asks Oda what kind of pitch he got and then tells him that the catcher is able to read Oda like a book. And that's what's happening with the rest of the team too. Oda explains that he asked Abe to throw him a fastball and promised he wouldn't swing at it. Kanu looks at him and asks if he really wants to win. Oda says he does, but he just thought he could hit the ball next time. Kanu tells Oda that he's underestimating Mihashi too, even though he's the cleanup hitter and should know better. Kanu says he's not going to lose to Mihashi again, no matter what. Oda gets confused and asks what he means by again, since Mihashi only got on the team because of his grandfather. But Kanu says that Headache is the only one who still believes that. Kanu admits that he's starting to feel like he might not be able to beat Mihashi at all, and if that's really true then he doesn't think he should be pitching anymore. He looks at Oda seriously and asks him to help win this game because it might be the last time he ever gets to play against Mihashi. Later on, in a flashback, Kanu burst into tears in front of Oda, telling him that this is his last chance to ever play a game against Mihashi. While Mahoshi is on defense, Momo points out that the reason Nishiyura is having such a hard time scoring is because of how fast Headache and Kanu are pitching, and how they use the forkball even when they're behind in the count. After Abe strikes out, he goes back to Mihashi and tells him that while he's great as a pitcher on the mound, he needs to take batting seriously too. Abe also notices that Mihashi really looks up to Kanu's pitching style, even though Kanu is on the other team. After that strikeout, Nishiyura takes the field and switches to defense. When it's Kanu's turn to bat, Abe can tell right away that Kanu is completely focused on winning. He watches Kanu carefully and notices that he repeats the same actions before every at-bat, like a little routine to bring himself good luck. Before stepping up, Kanu knocks the dirt off his shoes, takes 2 practice swings, lifts the bat to stretch out his arms, and then finally gets into his batting stance. On the next one, he hits a ground ball and sprints toward first base, sliding to try and beat the throw, but the ball gets there first and the umpire calls him out. After that, Headache and Kanu get into an argument because Kanu slid to first base. Headache gets upset and tells Kanu that it's just a practice match and not worth risking an injury. But Kanu fires back, saying that Headache needs to take the game more seriously. The tension grows as they keep yelling at each other, but then Oda shows up and steps in between them, stopping the fight before it gets worse. At the start of the 4th inning, both teams are still tied with no runs. After the argument earlier, Coach Momo sees that Kanu isn't as calm as before and gives a signal for Oki to wait. Kanu ends up throwing 4 balls in a row, letting Oki walk to first base. After that, Abe lays down a sacrifice bunt, moving Oki to second. Then Tajima spots an opening in right center and hits the ball right into that gap, allowing Oki to run home and score the first run of the game. When Abe sees how Mihashi reacts to the run, he tells him that it looks like he actually feels bad for Kanu. Mihashi quietly admits that, yeah, maybe he does a little. Against the next batter, Headache fails to catch Kanu's forkball, and because of that mistake, Tajima takes the chance to steal third base. Right after that, Hanai manages to hit a fastball and sends the ball far enough to let Tajima run home, giving Nishiyura their second run. With 2 outs on the board, Kanu struggles again and throws 4 straight balls, walking another batter. Team Mahoshi calls a timeout and gathers on the mound. But it quickly turns into another argument, this time about how they've all been underestimating Mihashi as a pitcher. Kanu gets frustrated and says that the reason they're now behind by 2 runs is because Hadake didn't take Mihashi seriously. He points out that Mihashi is actually pitching a perfect game so far. Kanu goes on to say that he always believed Mihashi was a good pitcher, but nobody listened to him back in junior high because their team kept losing. He says it wasn't Mahashi's fault. They were trying to win, since they thought Mihashi only got to be ace because of family connections. Kanu also adds that the reason Mihashi is doing so well now is because Abe, his catcher, is working closely with him and calling smart pitches. However, Hadake tries to defend himself by saying he only acted that way for Kanu's sake, claiming that Kanu should have been the ace instead of Mihashi. With Oda stepping in to calm things down, the team finally agrees that if they want to win, they need to stop ignoring Mahashi's skills and start giving him the credit he deserves. Meanwhile, over on Nishiura's side, Abe can tell that Mihashi still feels a connection to Kanu and kind of misses being with his old teammates. This makes Abe even more determined to win, not just for the team, but for Mahashi's sake. He wants Mihashi to choose Nishiura over Mahoshi. Abe never thought he'd find a strong pitcher at Nishiura, but now that he has, he's not about to let Mihashi go. Deep down, Abe feels that staying with Nishiura is what's best for Mihashi, and he wants to show him that. By the end of the game, Abe hopes Mihashi will finally understand how important he is to the team. After that, Mihashi continues to pitch perfectly and his whole team praises his performance. Then, Yoshi comes back to the field and apologizes to Kanu, assuring him that he never underestimated Mahashi's abilities. But when it's Nishiura's turn to bat, Mizutani hits a ground ball but is quickly thrown out at first. Now, it's Mahashi's turn to bat, and as he steps up to the plate, he sees Kanu glaring at him from the mound. Mihashi starts to freak out a little, but slowly he makes his way to the batter's box, trying to stay. Later, it's Mahoshi's turn to bat and Oda is up first. He hits 2 foul balls in a row and starts to wonder why he can't hit Mahashi's pitches. He thinks Mihashi is either really good or just really lucky. He gets more nervous trying to guess what kind of pitch is coming next and ends up striking out on the 3rd one. Afterward, it's Hadake's turn, but he gets out too when he hits a flying shot. The coach watches and starts to wonder why his team is having such a hard time against a team that doesn't seem very strong. Most of his players should know Mihashi's pitching style by now, so it doesn't make sense to him. After the field is taken care of, Shinuka explains to the team what happened with the first 2 Nishiura batters in the 6th inning. Then it's Tajima's turn and Nishiura starts getting excited, hoping for something big. But Kanu ends up walking Tajima too, so now there are runners on 1st and 2nd. Afterward, Hanai comes up to bat and hits a ground ball to 3rd, which leads to Abe getting out. As Abe heads back toward the dugout, Mihashi walks up to him partway with some of his catcher gear in his hands. Mihashi tries to start a talk, saying that Hanai came really close with that hit and reminds Abe they still have 2 runners on base. However, Abe then asks Mihashi if he's still feeling bad for Kanu. As Kanu strikes out Nishiura's next batter, Mihashi starts thinking about whether he really wants to go back to Mahoshi. But before he can get too lost in his thoughts, Abe drops Mihashi's mitt right on his head, snapping him out of it. It turns out that Mahoshi still can't get on base, but Nishiura doesn't do much better when they're up to bat either. In the dugout, the coach tells Kanu to stop warming up because he's getting close to his pitch limit. However, Oda turns to Kanu and asks why he thinks Mihashi is a better pitcher than him. Instead of answering right away, Kanu asks Oda what he thinks makes a good pitcher, but Oda replies it's control and speed. Kanu tells Oda that he's never seen Mihashi throw a lazy or careless pitch, but Oda doesn't agree and says he still doesn't believe that. However, Kanu keeps explaining that Mihashi has never hit a batter with a pitch, not even once, and has only given up 1 walk, and that was just because the umpire was standing way out on the edge of the strike zone. He also shares that Mihashi uses a target board that's split into 9 sections to practice his accuracy. After hearing all this, Oda starts to believe that Mihashi really does have amazing control. But Hadake still refuses to believe it and keeps denying that Mihashi is actually that accurate. When Yoshi steps up to bat, he hits a fly ball toward left field. Mizutani tries to catch it but misses, letting a runner get on base and ending their chance at a perfect game. This makes Abe really angry. Meanwhile, Oda remembers something his coach once told him about how he closes his eyes right before swinging the bat. Mihashi notices this and starts to worry that Oda might actually hit the next pitch. He wants to shake his head to stop the pitch, but he throws it anyway. Oda ends up hitting a triple and brings in a run. Now it's turn for Hadake to bat next and notices a small hand gesture Mihashi makes, which signals that he's going to throw a fastball. Using that clue, Haddock manages to hit a home run and gives his team the lead. Seeing that, Mihashi starts feeling bad, but Momo sees this and quietly tells Nishihiro to throw Mihashi a sign to help him calm down. But before that can happen, Mihashi pulls himself together, stands up straight and gets ready to pitch again. But Momo watches him and feels impressed by how strong Mihashi's will is to keep going. Even after giving up the lead, Mihashi stays focused and is still set on getting the rest of the batters out. Afterward, Abe is shocked that both Oda and Haddock were able to get hits and tells himself it must have just been bad luck. Meanwhile, Mihashi doesn't go back into the dugout and instead, he sits down on the ground right next to it, looking upset. Abe realizes that Mihashi must be blaming himself since he was the one throwing the pitches, so he walks over to talk to him. Abe says he was the one who got greedy because he wanted the outs so badly and that the triple and the home run were his fault, not Mihashi's. Mihashi looks confused and doesn't understand why Abe is apologizing or why he cared so much about getting a no-hitter. Then Abe yells at him, saying he saw how Mihashi was still thinking about Mahoshi during the game and that he didn't just want to win, he wanted to completely beat them. Meanwhile, Coach Momo calls over the next 3 batters and tells them to try and load the bases. That way, Mahoshi won't be able to walk Tajima on purpose again. She also wants to wear Kanu down since he's already thrown over 80 pitches. When Sakiguchi goes up to bat, he waits and doesn't swing at the first 2 pitches, which both end up being balls. Haddock notices that their coach gave them a sign to wait and quickly figures out what they're trying to do. Still, he thinks he can easily get 2 strikes on each batter. Even though Sakiguchi fouls off the 3rd and 4th pitches, he's still hanging in there. Next up is Oki, and during his at-bat, he gets hit in the leg by a pitch. Even though it hurts, he manages to run to first base without a problem. Abe notices that Haddock still thinks that they're just trying to increase the pitch count. However, Kanu starts getting tired out even more and Abe manages to hit a single, leaving the bases fully loaded. After that, the weird team called Mahoshi gets a break and they start talking about what to do about Tajima. Haddock says they should put out a strong defense and that letting 1 run happen is okay. But Kanu doesn't like that idea and kicks Haddock. However, Kanu starts by throwing a forkball and Tajima swings but misses while Momo tries to give Tajima a signal, but he's too locked in on Momo's Doraemon heads to see it. The second pitch is another forkball and Tajima misses again. But on the 3rd pitch, which is a changeup, Tajima finally makes contact and hits it. Sakiguchi runs in and scores, but Oki gets tagged out at home plate. At that moment, Mihashi notices that the Mahoshi team looks happier now that Kanu is pitching. Then Tajima walks over to Mihashi to try and cheer him up. He says that even though he's the cleanup hitter and the bases were loaded, he only got 1 run. But he's still allowed to head back to the dugout. He also tells Mihashi that everyone on the team has seen how good he's been pitching, and that he should come and sit with them. On the first pitch, Hanai bunts the ball and Kanu runs up and picks it up, but he struggles to throw it because he's too tired to keep his balance. Standing on the mound, Kanu gets upset and Oda tells him not to cry over a baseball game. Kanu snaps back, saying he just got sweat in his eyes, and yells at Oda to just go back to his base. The first 2 batters try their hardest to beat Mihashi, but they both end up getting out. When it's Oda's turn to bat, Mihashi suddenly realizes just how much fun he's having out on the mound. Oda strikes out, and with that, Nishihiro wins the game. After the game, as the team gets ready to leave, the Mahoshi team comes over to see Mihashi. He tries to run away, but Abe grabs him and pulls him over to talk to his old teammates. Haddock and the others apologize to Mihashi and ask if he would forgive them by coming back to Mahoshi. However, Mihashi firmly says that he won't go back, which annoys Kanu. Kanu then asks him why, saying that Mihashi proved to the team how good he is. However, Kanu says it wasn't the same anymore since they were now enemies and asks if Mihashi feels lonely at Nishihira. Mihashi turns around to look at his teammates and confidently replies that he's not lonely at all. Haddock then tells Kanu that he shouldn't feel like he's living in Mahashi's shadow anymore, but Kanu quickly denies it, saying he never said that. Mihashi asks if they could play together again someday and Kanu smiles. Back at the Nishihira camp, everyone is busy with different things, but Abe notices that Mihashi is still lying alone in a dark room. Looking down, Mihashi doesn't say anything, just turns over to face the wall. At that moment, Momo suddenly appears and asks if Mihashi is asleep. Abe tells her to let him sleep since Mihashi hasn't had much rest lately. They carefully put him in a futon and then return to what they were doing. Coach Momo tells Abe that he gave Mihashi some peace of mind and earned his trust in the process. The next morning, Mihashi wakes up and quickly realizes he's running late for his early morning training. Later, while walking, he runs into Sakiguchi and hesitates for a moment before greeting him. Sakiguchi, noticing Mahashi's hesitation, cheerfully says good morning and thinks to himself that Mahashi is making more eye contact than before. As they continue walking, Sakiguchi asks Mahashi where he lived during middle school, but Mahashi replies that he lived with his relatives. Afterward, Sakiguchi shares that he and Abe went to the same middle school and were on teams in the senior league. However, they were not on the same team. Abe's team was the strongest in their block and he played an amazing pitcher who was a year older. They were the 16th strongest in Kanto. Mahashi wonders what kind of pitcher an amazing pitcher is. As soon as Sakiguchi and Mahashi arrive at the practice site, Shiga announces that they're going to do a meditation exercise. He uses Shinuka, the manager, as an example to explain alpha waves, which are brain waves that happen when a person is relaxed and focused. Shiga says that everyone produces these waves in their daily lives, but not everyone notices them. He finishes by asking everyone to join hands in a circle to start the meditation. After that, Momo tells them to begin batting practice since their time is limited. He also mentions that they'll be watching a movie later between Urawa Sogo and Musashino. The team arrives at the stadium to watch the game that will determine the top 8, and Abe thinks it's odd that they are watching a game like this. He feels it would have been better if they watched the finals instead. However, Momo argues that a match like this has its own value and is worth watching. Hanai and the others start discussing which team they think is stronger. They all agree that Urawa Sogo is the stronger team, but Musashino is strong in soccer, which makes the girls cheer for them. Meanwhile, a Musashino player walks over to their bench and starts cheering for Abe, but Shinuka overhears and tells Abe about it. Abe then heads over to talk to Haruna, the amazing pitcher Sakiguchi mentioned earlier. Haruna asks Abe where his school is, and he replies that it's Nishiura. Haruna doesn't seem to know where Nishiura is when Musashino's catcher comes over to get Haruna since the match is about to start and he still needs to warm up. Haruna gets annoyed by the catcher's unnecessary worrying, saying he won't be up until the 4th inning. Haruna asks Abe to stay after the game, but Abe declines. Haruna remembers how it took Abe half a year to catch his pitches, how Abe was covered in bruises, and how they lost the game because of Abe's passed balls. Although Abe finally got better by the second half of the year, Haruna teases him, saying he still can't catch his pitches now. Haruna walks off after telling Abe to watch the game. Annoyed, Abe returns to sit with Mahashi and Sakiguchi. Sakiguchi comments that Haruna has gotten bigger and then adds that he had already told Mahashi about Haruna. The others ask Abe about Haruna, and he explains that Haruna is a pitcher but won't start pitching until the 4th inning. He also mentions that Haruna has a self-imposed pitch limit of 80, and once he hits that limit, no matter what, he will come off the mound. Various teams and scouts have gathered to watch the game, with all eyes on Haruna. The Nishiura team, especially Tajima and Mihashi, watches closely as Haruna throws his warm-up pitches. Mahashi's insecurities begin to surface again. However, Mihashi stops crying and recalls how Abe had always praised and supported him. He promises to never forget it. Mihashi realizes that he's not in competition with Haruna. He remembers that the team is behind him, and for them, he can give his all on the mound. Later on, during the 4th inning, Haruna steps up to the mound, which proves what Abe said earlier was true. Sakiguchi wonders if it's also true that Haruna is only going to throw 80 pitches. Abe remembers how his whole body used to shake when he stood in front of Haruna. Even though he was scared and it hurt, he pushed through it because he believed he could become a regular if he could just catch Haruna's pitches. However, Abe explains that Haruna gets about the same number of strikeouts as he does walks. After hearing that, Sakiguchi figures that maybe Abe thinks Haruna is the worst pitcher because he has poor control. Then Abe gets a flashback of the time when the coach asked him to meet Haruna. When they met, Haruna barely paid any attention to him. Right away, Haruna told the coach about his strict rule of only throwing 80 pitches. He also made a comment about how Abe probably couldn't handle his throws. Abe told him that his catching skills weren't that bad, which made Haruna challenge him to prove it. That same afternoon, Abe tried to catch one of Haruna's pitches, but he ended up hunching over and wincing from the pain. As time went on, Abe's body became bruised from all the tough practices with Haruna. Afterward, Sakiguchi calls Mihashi over and tells Abe that both he and Mihashi have been wondering why Abe calls Haruna the worst pitcher. Abe explains that the reason he even became a regular was because of Haruna, who was the ace back then. After hearing that, Sakiguchi finally speaks up and admits that it makes him feel uneasy to hear Abe talk that way about his old teammate and pitcher, Haruna. Abe then looks over at Mahashi, who is clearly panicking, to see if he feels the same way too. Even after Haruna got the ace number, he still stuck to his rule of not throwing more than 80 pitches, and in games he didn't think were worth it, he wouldn't even throw a single pitch with full power. There was even a time he got a mosquito bite and refused to throw a slider. Abe says he heard Haruna got injured back in junior high, and since he was already the selfish type, that just made him even more protective of himself. Back in the time, Haruna refuses to work on signs with Abe because only about half of his pitches go where he wants them to. Abe gets frustrated and complains that Haruna keeps ignoring his signs and that his control is terrible. Haruna just says that pitchers have the right to make that choice. Back in the present, Abe thinks about how it's true that pitchers can shake off signs, but if they do it too much, they'll just end up doing whatever they feel like. In a flashback, a Freak is leading Toda North 5-0 after just the top of the first inning, but Haruna thinks the game is already hopeless. But Abe doesn't want to give up because if they win, Toda North will make it into the top 8. Abe bows deeply to Haruna and asks him to pitch with everything he's got. But Haruna flat out refuses, saying he won't risk getting hurt by pitching at full strength for a middle school game. Instead, Haruna agrees to throw whatever Abe calls, but it doesn't make much of a difference since only half his pitches go where Abe signals anyway. After the game, Abe is crying in the bathroom when Haruna walks in and finds him. Suddenly, Abe's emotions boil over and he grabs Haruna, slamming him against the wall. But Haruna doesn't feel bad about the loss. Instead, he gets mad that Abe might injure his left shoulder and tells him to let go. In the present, Abe explains that to Haruna, the team was nothing more than a tool. Even though they stayed as someone who bats until Haruna retired, they got into plenty of fights. Suddenly, Mihashi curls up into a ball. He realizes that Abe can't forgive Haruna not just because he was the ace of the team, but because he was Abe's ace. Abe only wanted them to be a great battery and had hoped Haruna would value the time they had together. When Mihashi finally looks up, Abe tells him to stop crying and pull himself together. He adds that when he's on the mound, having no expression is fine, but smiling would be even better. A smile would help calm down his teammates and, on top of that, really annoy the opponents. Mihashi believes that as long as Abe is there, he'll be able to pitch for sure. At the top of the 9th, Musashino leads by a run with a man out and all bases empty. The count is 2-1 when Haruna turns to face where Abe is and shows him the ball. Abe immediately calls Tajima to observe Haruna. Haruna uses his all-out pitch, but the catcher is unable to handle it. However, Tajima is disappointed that the next one was just a normal pitch. The game ends with Musashino winning 4-3. Momo gathers the boys to leave. On the Tosai side, Junta complains that they wasted so much time just to see Haruna throw one pitch. Kazuki, however, thinks it's already lucky that they even got to see that. He explains that the real problem likely lies with the catcher. Ryo, on the other hand, silently vents his frustration about Haruna's poor choice of school. He feels Haruna should have gone to his brother's team, where he would have had the chance to work with a much better catcher. After the game, Musashino lets Haruna and Akimaru off the hook from doing cleanup duty. Haruna rushes to the stands, only to find that Abe has already left. Akimaru follows Haruna outside, and they start talking about Abe. Haruna, who had talked a lot about Abe to Akimaru, who went to the same middle school as him, shares some history. Haruna left the middle school baseball team to join the senior league team, while Akimaru stayed behind with the school team. Akimaru remembers how terrifying Haruna was back in middle school, especially when Haruna was going through tough times. No one would approach him, whether at home or school, and Akimaru feels sympathy for Abe. However, over time, Haruna has slowly started to change for the better, and Akimaru feels like Abe played a big role in helping him return to normal. Mahashi thinks to himself about wanting to make a great battery with Abe, knowing that he can pitch as long as it's with him. But before he can think more about it, Momo interrupts and asks what they need in order to succeed. Both Abe and Momo agree that they need another pitcher, which breaks Mahashi's heart. He starts crying uncontrollably. Abe, frustrated, explains that they have doubleheaders coming up in the practice games. Mahashi suggests he could pitch both games, just like he did in middle school. But Momo and Abe quickly shut down his idea, telling him there's no way he could handle throwing 300-400 pitches. The schedule for the upcoming summer tournament is going to be demanding and grueling, especially with the heat. Momo emphasizes that this tournament will be much tougher than middle school, and it would be a huge mistake to think they can get by with just one pitcher. Tajima quickly takes action to boost Mahashi's confidence. Using a marker, he draws the number 1 on Mahashi's jersey, symbolizing the ace's number. Mahashi beams with pride as he lovingly admires his newly marked up baseball uniform. Momo then assigns Hanai and Oki as relief pitchers. Although Oki didn't mention it in his profile, he has more pitching experience than Hanai. After that, Momo moves on to selecting another catcher for the team. Seeing how upset Mihashi is, Tajima tries to write the number 2 on Abe's uniform, but Abe refuses. In retaliation, Abe quickly puts Tajima in a headlock. Sakiguchi thinks that if Mihashi's parents see the 1 on his uniform, they might think he's being bullied. With the rest of the team, except Abe, lacking experience as a catcher, Momo suggests that Tajima take on the role. Tajima seems to fit the bill perfectly, with his strong throwing arm, sharp baseball instincts, and good rapport with Mihashi. Momo describes the excitement and thrill of being a catcher, which convinces Tajima to agree. The rest of the team will rotate positions to learn more than just 2 roles. Momo helps Tajima into his catcher's gear, and Tajima immediately takes a liking to it, commenting on how easy it is to move around in it. Momo hands him his mitt and warns him, in a jokingly terrifying manner, to take really good care of it. Meanwhile, Abe notices Mihashi struggling with his pitching and approaches him to talk. Abe learns that Mihashi is worried because there are other pitchers. Abe reassures him, explaining that it's not about Mihashi being unreliable. It's just that, during practice games, they'll need 2 pitchers. Oki and Hanai will be there to step in when Mihashi starts to get fatigued. However, Mihashi's real concern is that he feels he won't be a good pitcher without Abe. A smile slowly spreads across Abe's face as he realizes that this is the first time Mihashi has actually spoken his mind. Abe confidently tells Mihashi that, for the next 3 years, he won't get sick or injured. If Mihashi is on the mound, Abe will definitely be his catcher. But, Abe adds with a serious tone, Mihashi is not allowed to get sick either. After practice, Momo gives the boys the chance to decide who should be the team captain. They all quickly agree, unanimously voting for Hanai. They think about someone who can keep the players in check, speak openly with Momo, and show a strong work ethic. The cheers echo through the group as Hanai reluctantly accepts the responsibility. After watching Nishi catch his first fly ball, Mihashi accidentally bumps into Shinuka. She immediately greets him, remembering that it's his birthday. With practice over, everyone gathers around Momo. She expresses her concern about the boys' studies, especially with exams coming up soon. Tajima protests, questioning why she's suddenly so interested in their grades. Momo tries to explain the importance of studying, dramatically emphasizing how dangerous it would be to get red marks on their report cards. Finally, Momo asks who's at risk of failing, to which both Mihashi and Tajima proudly admit in unison. She clutches their heads, sternly telling them that they won't be allowed to compete if their grades are poor. The boys start discussing which subjects they need help with, and Mihashi excitedly invites everyone over to his house to study. He assures them that he can accommodate all 10 of them, making the others think he must live in a huge house and be rich. Mihashi quickly informs his mom about the plan. Once they arrive at Mihashi's house, Hanai takes charge and leads the group in studying. But then, they hear a high-pitched voice. It's Mihashi's mom, who has just arrived. Mihashi quickly exits to greet her. Tajima overhears her mention that it's Mihashi's birthday while she shows him his cake. Soon after, the rest of the team finds out, and Mihashi's mom tries hard to stifle her laughter at Mihashi, who had unknowingly set up his own surprise party. Tajima breaks the awkwardness and suggests they all celebrate Mihashi's birthday together. Sakiguchi offers to help with the preparations, while Hanai politely asks Mihashi's mom to join them. Shortly after dinner, Abe requests to see Mihashi's practice area. Mihashi warns Abe that he might be disappointed, though Abe thinks otherwise. The others take a good look at Mihashi's pitching target. Before, Mihashi reveals he used a board, but after switching from softball to hardball, it was destroyed. Later, everyone recalls the time when Momo whacked Mihashi with a bat for being so negative. Abe also reflects that at the time, he thought that it was impossible for Mihashi to change. Afterward, Sakiguchi exclaims at how tall and big everyone is, including Hanai. Tajima assures him that there is still hope for them to grow. After all, they are still freshmen. The crowd overhears, stirring their curiosity. Suddenly, Sakiguchi and Mihashi feel the urge to go to the toilet. After relieving himself, Mihashi is asked to find some toilet paper for Sakiguchi. Without luck finding any inside the bathroom, he tries to run off outside to get some when he bumps into someone and falls on the floor. When he looks up to apologize, he is shocked to see a familiar face, Haruna. Akimaru barges in and saves Mihashi from further scolding, much to Sakiguchi's relief. Afraid that Mihashi might have been injured, Haruna quickly lifts Mihashi and asks if he is alright. Seeing how Mihashi is fine, Haruna and Akimaru go about their business. Mihashi blurts how he thinks Haruna is a nice person when he gets a call from Abe. Haruna corners Mihashi and asks whom he was talking to just now. With Mihashi in a panic, Sakiguchi butts in, telling Haruna that it is the same Abe whom he worked with in senior. Akimaru, knowing that it is their first time joining, wishes them luck. When asked about Nishiura's pitcher, Mihashi reluctantly points to himself. Haruna then places his hand on Mihashi's shoulder. With a smile, Haruna tells him that they should all do their best. Sakiguchi breaks up this little moment, reminding Mihashi of his toilet paper dilemma. Akimaru volunteers to help and gets 2 rolls of tissue from the girl's toilet, with the help of someone else inside. In the meeting hall, after being seated, Sakiguchi informs Abe of their chance meeting with Haruna. Mihashi gleefully reiterates how great a person Haruna is and shares what he said about doing their best. Abe is annoyed that Mihashi does not realize that Haruna was looking down on him. His mood quickly changes as he knows that once Haruna throws those 80 pitches, his team will lose for sure. The one who will emerge on top will be the pitcher he belittled, Mihashi. The ceremonial music starts blaring and the meeting finally starts. The announcer invites the team captains to come up to the stage to do the lottery, which will decide their matchup for the first round. Mihashi, Sakiguchi, and Izumi talk about the seeded teams. Arc gets the number 1 slot while Tosai, last year's champion, takes 85. Looking around the hall, Mihashi realizes that there are still a lot of teams, players, and amazing pitchers that he does not know about. Mihashi wants to win and to experience that feeling of winning again. While waiting for their turn in lottery, Tajima tells Hanai to get number 128 so they can go up against Musashino. Hanai is slightly anxious when Abe asked about his luck with lotteries. When Hanai makes his way to the stage, Abe encourages him to not give up, even if he sucks at lottery. On stage, Hanai is impressed at the sheer massiveness of the board holding about 170 slots, indicating the number of teams participating. After Hanai hands out his lottery number, the hall bursts into applause as the official announces that Nishiura has gotten number 85 and will face Tosai for the first round. Reporters corner Hanai, wanting to get a few words from the captain whose team will go up against last year's champions. Momo quickly neutralizes Izumi's pessimism over their matchup with Tosai. The others adhere her warning and keep their opinions of losing to themselves. Mihashi hopes for a chance of victory since everyone, including himself, wants to win so badly. Tajima thinks that it is quite possible to win, shocking the others. Abe explains that most people would expect them to lose to Tosai, being an all first-year team. Tajima wonders if Abe is scared too. Abe answers that he is not because Tajima would surely score, given some work on the batting order. Abe compares how they had no data during their first game, but it is different now. Tosai has a lot of exposure. With good analysis on the batters and battery, along with solid defense, Mihashi should be able to seal the deal for them. Momo points out that the difference between the strong and weak teams is their time spent on practice. That is why Momo wants to start practice at 5 AM with other clubs using the grounds in the afternoon. The best time to practice their offense and defense would be from 5 to 9 PM. The others are inspired in doing their best, seeing how Momo is doing hers as well. The Tosai team is equally pumped as Kazumi declares that victory is theirs. After a bit of chaffing between Tajima and Mizutani, a person comes over and asks Mihashi how the raffle went. Mihashi mistakenly answers that there were many people, though the person wanted to find out whom they would be up against. Mihashi reveals that it is Tosai, much to the person's surprise. Tajima recognizes him to be Hamada, his classmate. Izumi thinks that it might be a case of mistaken identity when Hamada wonders if Mihashi is the same Mihashi he knew back then. Afterwards, Mihashi wakes up from his dream and he dreamt of when he was in grade school, and Hama, one of his few friends who gave him his first glove. Now, Hama has come back to his life because Hama is Hamada. Upon Shiga's request, Hamada joins Nishiura's practice and after stepping onto the grounds, he decides to go out again to greet Tajima and Sakiguchi with the same enthusiasm they greeted him. Hanai comes to greet him too and is surprised that Hamada already knows him and all the other Nishiura players' names. Meanwhile, Mihashi anxiously listens to their conversation from the side, stealing glances at Hamada. Noticing that Mihashi wants to talk to Hamada, Abe pulls him out and gives him a push. Mihashi ends up bumping into Hamada and greets him by calling out his name. Hamada with a smile tells Mihashi to call him Hama-chan instead of Oni-chan, just like they used to. Nostalgia fills the air as Mihashi recalls those old days. He never expected to be in the same class as Hamada, especially since Hamada is older. Hamada explains that he flunked, not because of an injury or illness, but because of his own foolishness. Mihashi, feeling a bit nostalgic himself, shares that he had a great time playing with Hamada when they both lived at Jishijishisu. However, when he transferred to a new school, He didn't have any friends to play baseball with and ended up playing all alone. Shiga breaks up the chit-chat and starts the morning off with a dose of talk on meditation and relaxing. Usually, they would need 5 minutes to meditate to relax themselves. During the actual games though, they may not be able to afford that kind of time. Since relaxing during tense situations goes against a person's instincts, they need something to trigger it. Something tangible and something present during intense times of a game. The team agrees that a runner on third, be it them or the enemy, is frightening and stressful. The boys join hands and engage in a short meditation. Shiga tells them to put themselves in Momo's shoes, who is playing the runner at third. They are to imprint that image and connect it with relaxing. Shortly after, Shiga announces that their meditation exercise ends there and the team starts practice, and Momo goes to Hamada to exchange introductions, as this is the first time they have met. Later, Momo grabs Hamada's hands and sincerely asks him to stay even more positive than the players and always keep the energy in the stands high. Hamada is taken aback by her determination to beat last year's champions, and at that moment, he promises to give his best effort. The team begins setting up for batting practice. Hamada notices they're using wooden bats, and one pitching machine is throwing balls at 130 kilometers while the other is set to deliver sliders. Hamada offers to help pick up the balls. Tajima steps up and confidently calls out where he plans to hit the ball, and he does it. Sakiguchi comments that Tajima can hit the ball exactly where he wants about 80% of the time. After morning practice, the players head to their classes. Once classes are over, they focus on field of vision exercises, followed by base running drills. Hamada shows up with a couple of friends who are fast enough to run from base to base in 6 seconds, and they help out with the base running practice. When the rugby club takes over most of the field, the team switches to practicing difficult tosses. By the end of the day, their hard work is rewarded with onigiri. Even when it starts raining, they don't stop practicing. They continue with activities like jumping rope, running up and down the stairs, and pretending to bat. Once the rain clears up, they rake and maintain the field to keep it in good shape. One day during their break at school, Hamada sits and sews something while Izumi and Tajima eat their lunch. Hamada comments on how much they practice. Izumi says they get used to it. Tajima, laughing, admits that he gets exhausted and can only manage to relax once a day, but he enjoys the practice. Izumi recalls how much he hated practice back in middle school. Hamada then asks what they do after eating their onigiri. Izumi and Tajima answer that they play jump rope, skateboard, and serious jungle gym freeze tag, where the winner of freeze tag gets to decide the onigiri filling. After that, a tired and out-of-breath Shinuka rushes onto the field and she gives Momo the information about Tosai. Momo quickly calls Abe and Hanai over so they can go through the data with her, and she tells Tajima to head to the bullpen to practice. Seeing that Mahashi is fidgeting, Abe reassures him that Tajima will be fine since it's just practice. But Mihashi isn't worried about that. Instead, he runs off, grabs a block of wood and proudly shows that he can now do his wind-up perfectly while standing on top of it. Instead of praising him, Abe looks at Mahashi and asks if this is what he's been doing after their late-night practices. When Mahashi shyly replies that he only practices during lunch breaks at school, Abe doesn't say anything right away. Then he gives Mahashi a bunch of noogies, messing up his hair as Mahashi laughs and tries to dodge them. Later that night, Hana's mother calls Mahashi's mother on the phone. While they talk, Mahashi struggles to drag himself to the bathroom, clearly tired from the long day. After his bath, Mihashi calls out asking for dinner, but his mom doesn't hear him because she's still on the phone. The two mothers finish their chat after agreeing to meet up later. The next day, Shinuka meets a friend in the bleachers and they chat about the small pies Shinuka has about the Nishiyura boys having little monsters. As they laugh together, the opening ceremony is just about to begin. Outside the stadium, the teams get ready for the parade. Tajima looks around and wonders where Tosai is, since they're supposed to be lining up behind them. Izumi explains that usually they would be, but because Tosai won the championship last year, they get to be in front and are already inside the stadium, standing at the center. As they wait, Mahashi spots the ace of another team and proudly glances at his own jersey. But when he looks again, he sees what looks like the same person, only now the jersey number is number 2. Panicking, Mahashi quickly takes off his jersey to double check that number 1 is still on his back. What he didn't realize is that he had seen a pair of twins, Ryu and Ai from Kasukabe, and had simply gotten confused. After the ceremony, Momo meets with Hanai's and Mihashi's mothers, and Momo shares that Hanai is very responsible and has helped her a lot as the team's coach. Hanai's mother proudly adds that he was also the team captain back in middle school. Then, Mihashi's mother quietly asks about her own son and admits, a little embarrassed, that she never got the chance to watch any of his games during middle school. Afterward, Hamada and 2 of his friends head over to the baseball field. As soon as Hamada steps onto the field, Tajima runs up to him and compliments him on how cool he looks in his uniform. But Hamada quickly moves on to introduce the 2 people with him, explaining that they were his classmates last year and are now part of the cheering squad. He also shares some good news. Around 200 more people have agreed to come and cheer for their team tomorrow. Izumi asks Hamada if he feels hot wearing the uniform, and Hamada admits that it is warm, but says it looks good. This makes Hanai curious, so Hamada tells them that he has an injury called Little League Elbow. However, Hanai starts thinking seriously and wonders if Hamada would really be okay just cheering from the sidelines. He thinks about how much Hamada has already done for the team. Then, Hanai takes off his hat, bows deeply, and thanks Hamada with full sincerity. After that, he and Izumi go off to help with field maintenance. As they work, Sakiguchi suggests that Izumi should ask Hamada to join the baseball club. But Izumi replies that Hamada already said he wouldn't be able to keep up with the rest of the team. Hamada's cheer squad friends tease him, saying he tricked Hanai and made him feel sorry for him. Hamada quickly denies it, saying that's not true. They also ask if the team knows the real reason why Hamada had to repeat a year. Hamada just comments on how innocent the players are, and his friends agree that there's no reason to bring up his messy past. Hamada then thanks both of them for agreeing to join the cheering squad. Meanwhile, Abe scolds Mihashi for not learning the Tosai batter's details, even though he gave him the data a whole week ago. Abe hands over the sheet again and tells him to study it properly. All of a sudden, Abe kicks a nearby bench, which startles Mihashi, who had been feeling sleepy. Before Abe can start scolding him again, Mihashi quickly speaks up and says that since Abe is always there, all he needs to do is focus on pitching. He doesn't think it's necessary to know about the batters. He adds that he completely trusts Abe's judgment. While Abe feels glad that Mihashi has so much trust in him, he also starts to feel the heavy responsibility that comes with it. Over at the Tosai side, Kazuki wraps up the day's practice. He takes a moment to thank Junta for working together with him as the battery, and also asks the whole team to give their best in tomorrow's game. The next day, the Nishiura team arrives at the Asajiri Central Park Baseball Stadium, ready for the big match. The sky turns cloudy as the first game between Tosai and Nishiura begins. After announcing the batting order, the Nishiura team breaks from their huddle, and Abe reaches out to touch Mahashi's palm. As more people start filling the stadium, Hamada tries to gather all the Nishiura supporters in one spot. While looking through the crowd, he spots Mahashi's mother and immediately runs over to greet her. Meanwhile, in the Tosai dugout, Kazuki watches the other team carefully, paying attention to Momo and the all-freshman team. Then, Shingo walks over and says that it will be tough not to go easy on the first-year players. The other Tosai players turn to look at him and Kazuki asks him to keep his voice down so no one else hears. After warming up, Mihashi is shocked to see how many people have come to watch the game. He also notices the group of supporters Hamada gathered to cheer for them. A wave of fear hits him as he remembers what happened in middle school. At first, a lot of people would fill the stands to cheer them on, but as the game went on, the cheers turned into jeers, and little by little the stands emptied out. Eventually, no one came to their games anymore and Mihashi blames himself for it. Just then, Hamada's voice brings Mihashi back to the present and he quickly runs toward the stands to talk with his mom and Hamada. Mihashi's mom looks at him and comments that the number on his back seems to be crooked. Hamada offers to sew the number on properly next time, but Mihashi's mom kindly declines. She wants to do it herself to show how proud she is of him. She admits that at first, she couldn't believe it and even thought Mihashi was being bullied when she saw the number 1 written on his jersey with a marker. But now, she knows it's not a mistake and feels very proud of Mihashi. Mihashi blushes, happy to hear his mother say those words and grateful that she believes in him as the team's ace. However, Momo watches the Tosai ace with admiration as he takes his practice throws. She feels honored that Tosai is taking them seriously and using their regular players, but she also thinks they seem a bit stiff. Finally, the game begins and Izumi steps up to bat first and gets into a bunting position against Tosai's pitcher, Take's. Izumi is capable of hitting 130 kph balls from the pitching machine, but he knows it's different when facing an actual pitcher with the same speed. Junta throws the first pitch and Kazuki feels a little worried since they don't have any data on the batters yet. After the second pitch, the count is 2 balls and no strikes, and knowing that Tosai would want to get a strike, Izumi and his team anticipate that Junta will throw a slider. However, Izumi connects with the pitch and makes it safely to base. Next up is Sakiguchi, who also assumes the bunting position, causing Kazuki to look at him with curiosity. Sakiguchi attempts a straight bunt but is thrown out, while Izumi successfully advances to second base. Then, Sayama steps up to bat and is given the same instruction to bunt. He is determined to make the most of his turn and move Izumi to third base, hoping that with Tajima coming up next, they will be able to score. As Izumi takes a lead from second base, Junta suddenly attempts a pickoff, catching everyone by surprise. The Tosai member wonders if he missed a sign but soon realizes that he didn't. However, Sayama begins to get the feeling that the pitcher might be feeling anxious. Meanwhile, Kazuki mutters under his breath, realizing that some of his own nervousness is rubbing off on Junta. Junta finally throws the pitch, and Sayama successfully executes a sacrifice bunt. Izumi is now on third with 2 outs. In the stands, the mothers start talking about Tajima's baseball skills. Mihashi's mom mentions that Tajima was at the top of the school rankings for the physical fitness test. But Tajima's mom responds that Tajima is a bit spoiled since he's the youngest. With 2 outs and a runner on third, Tajima steps up to the batter's box. Momo has set everything up for Tajima and signals Izumi to run home as soon as the ball is hit. After that, Junta throws a forkball for the first strike. Hanai recalls how Kazuki's signs seem to follow a clear pattern. Forkballs are used against right-handed hitters, while sinkers are aimed at lefties. Tajima swings at the next pitch, a sinker, but misses completely. The Nishi team is left in shock as Tajima strikes out, unable to hit the second sinker. Since Tajima is struggling to hit against the sinker, he decides to leave it up to Hanai. However, Tajima tells Hanai that the sinker is tough for left-handers to handle but that the forkball is more hittable for right-handers. As Nishi takes the defensive, Abe feels relieved, noticing that Mihashi doesn't seem nervous at all. Preparing to pitch, Mihashi wonders that this is the first time on the mound as a real ace. Afterward, Mihashi easily strikes out Mishiba, Tosai's first batter, with a fast ball. Back at the bench, Ryo jokes about Mishiba's less than impressive performance at the plate. Then, the Tosai coach calls Mishiba over and asks him to explain what happened. The coach hints that if Mishiba doesn't do better during his next turn at bat, he might ask Ryo to take his place. Meanwhile, on the field, Tajima catches a fly ball, getting the second Tosai batter out. Next up to bat is Shimazaki, and Abe thinks he will be the toughest batter to handle, so he decides to throw an outside slider. Shingo doesn't swing and the pitch is called a ball, but Abe notices a slight change in Shingo's footing, which might mean he plans to start hitting from here on. However, Shingo swings at an outside curveball, sending it into right foul territory. But Hanai chases after the ball and makes a diving catch, ending the first inning. On his way back to the dugout, Shingo realizes that the right fielder who made the catch is Nishiura's captain, and he tells himself that next time, he'll hit the ball to left field. After the inning ends with only 6 pitches, Tajima is really impressed by how well Mihashi pitched. Then, as it starts to rain, Abe quickly tells Mihashi to go hide so he doesn't get soaked. While waiting, Mihashi starts thinking about how the last batter hit the ball pretty well, and that makes him think that the next batters from Tosai might be just as good or maybe even better. Still, Mihashi believes that if he works together with his teammates, they can beat Tosai and he can strike them out. Right after the first pitch, Hanai notices that the Tosai pitcher looks nervous. Since Coach Momo didn't give him any clear plan for his turn at bat, Hanai decides to just go for it if he sees a good pitch. And just like that, the next ball comes in, and Hanai hits it right into center field, getting himself safely on base. When Tajima cheers for him and says he did a great job, Hanai feels super happy and proud. Coach Momo thinks to herself that the tactic they used in the first inning won't help them now. If they end up with 2 outs and only a runner on third, they can't rely on Mihashi, who's batting 8th, to get the job done. As Junta, the Tosai pitcher, throws a very wild pitch that flies up too high while facing Oki, Hanai manages to avoid getting picked off at first. Seeing that the pitcher is clearly shaken up, Momo gives Oki a sign to be patient and not swing. Junta then throws another ball, making the count 2 balls and no strikes. After the pitcher tries and fails to pick off Hanai again, Tajima quickly calls for a timeout, pointing out that Hanai's shoelace is untied. During the break, Tajima quietly tells Hanai to run for second base as soon as he gives the signal. Hanai seems unsure, but he steps far off first base, getting ready. The moment Junta starts his pitching motion, Tajima gives the sign, and Hanai takes off running. He sprints to second and makes it just in time. He's safe. The Nishi team can tell that this wasn't something Coach Momo planned. It was clearly Tajima's idea from the start. As Hanai catches his breath, He feels surprised and impressed at how quickly Tajima was able to notice the pitcher's move and act on it. Junta keeps struggling, and things get worse when Oki manages to draw a walk from him. Even though he's clearly frustrated, Junta tries to calm himself down and focus as he gets ready to pitch to the next batter, Mizutani. With runners now on first and second base, both Coach Momo and Mizutani feel sure that Kazuki, the catcher, will ask for a slider. Just like they expected, a slider comes, and Mizutani swings, hitting a fast line drive. But before it can get past the infield, Shingo reacts quickly and snags it, turning the play into a double play that ends the inning. Even though the play doesn't go in their favor, the Nishiura cheering team stays full of energy. Mihashi makes it to first base safely, but right after reaching it, he trips and falls hard onto the dirt, which worries both Tajima and the umpire. To make sure he isn't injured, Mihashi is asked to do some quick movements and stretches. While this is happening, Abe starts thinking it would be better to bring in a pinch runner so Mihashi can take a break and avoid getting hurt again. But when Mihashi keeps insisting over and over that he's completely fine, Abe starts to get really annoyed and frustrated with him. As Abe steps up to bat and gets ready for the pitch, Mihashi keeps staring at second base like he's thinking about making a move. Kazuki, the catcher, notices that Mihashi is standing way too far off the base, so he signals for a pickoff. The Tosai players try to trap Mihashi between the bases. While they're chasing him down, Hanai suddenly breaks into a sprint toward home plate. In the middle of the play, Shingo manages to tag Mihashi out, but at the same time, Hanai lays on Mahashi's back and gets ready to do something unholy. Afterward, in the second inning, with runners on first and third and seeing that Abe decides to change. However, Mihashi, who's on first base, takes a really big lead off, catching Kazuki's attention. Kazuki quickly calls for a pickoff play. Several Tosai players rush in to trap Mihashi, and at the same time, Hanai takes off from third, sprinting toward home. Afterward, Shingo finally catches Mihashi and tags him out. For a moment, the entire stadium goes completely quiet, waiting to hear the umpire's call. Then, the silence breaks as the umpire signals that Nishiura scores a run, and the whole crowd along with the Nishiura bench explodes with excitement and cheers. Suddenly, Junta gets surprised and starts to question if he completely forgot there was a runner on third. He realizes he might have been way too focused on tagging out Mihashi, thinking it would be the third out. But before he can think too much about it, Kazuki calls out to him and tells him to come back to the bench. Right after, the announcer asks for Nishiura to check on Mihashi to make sure he's okay. Meanwhile, still puzzled, Junta asks Kazuki about the first base coach. He's curious how someone was able to read his pitching motion so well and help Hanai pull off the steal. Kazuki admits he's not sure who it was but says it could be because they had already seen Junta's pickoff move twice before, which might have helped them figure out the right timing. Meanwhile, Shinuka checks Mahashi's temperature, and even though it's a little high, he seems okay overall. Because of that, Coach Momo decides to let him go back out onto the field. The moment Mihashi runs onto the field, the crowd cheers loudly, happy to see him back in the game. Still, from the bench, Momo makes up her mind to watch Mihashi closely just in case, since the thermometer did show that his temperature isn't exactly normal. The next batter up for Tosai is Take Hiko, who had the chance to play at Kashian Stadium as a freshman last year. He used to be the team's third baseman, but now he's playing as their shortstop. On Mihashi's first pitch, a slider comes but Aoki swings and misses. Then on the second pitch, he hits it foul, and watching from the stands, Hamada comments that Aoki must have a strong arm if he can send Mihashi's slower pitch all the way outside the ballpark. But Mihashi doesn't let the powerful foul ball shake him. He stays focused and finishes the at-bat by striking Aoki out. Still going strong, Mihashi keeps up his great pitching and manages to strike out Kazuki, who's not only the catcher but also the captain of Tosai, and then follows that by striking out Matoyama too. When the second inning ends, the score remains 1-0 with Nishiura holding the lead. Afterward, Junta bounces back from his earlier struggles and makes up for it by striking out Abe in just 3 pitches, showing much better control and focus. After the strikeout, Mihashi walks over and hands Abe his catcher gear, even though there was no need to do that. Abe senses that Mihashi might be trying to say something but is holding back. Growing impatient, Abe tells Mihashi to just speak up and say whatever's on his mind. Back on the mound, Junta keeps his rhythm and gets Sakiguchi to hit a high pop fly, which is caught, making it the second out. Meanwhile, Kazuki watches from the bench and is honestly shocked by how strong Nishiura is playing, especially since it's their very first time joining the summer tournament, and they've brought only first-year players. He finally starts to understand that Nishiura isn't just lucky, they're actually a solid, skilled team. when Tajima comes up for his second turn at bat. Junta gets the better of him and strikes him out with ease, sending Nishi back to the field for defense. Just then, a baddie gets inside the stadium and spots Mihashi's mom, so she goes over and sits next to her. Mihashi's mom offers her a towel to dry off, but the girl says no. Instead, she starts taking off her clothes to show off her talents. However, the other moms notice and start asking if she's Mihashi's girlfriend. Mihashi's mom tells them that the girl's name is Ruri and she's Mihashi's cousin. Turns out, Rui comes today thinking that Mahoshi is going to win, and that Mihashi's team is going to lose. She sits with Mihashi's mom and tells her that Mihashi didn't do very well back when he was playing for Mahoshi. He never told his mom about any of his game days, and he didn't really want Rui to come watch either. But just yesterday, he suddenly asked her if the stadium was too far for her to come. Rui told him that the game might be over tomorrow because their opponent is really strong, but Mihashi answered with confidence, saying it wouldn't be over. Now, as Rui watches Mihashi on the mound, doing really well and throwing strikeout after strikeout, she starts to think that maybe the reason he was so sure yesterday is because he's actually become a pretty good pitcher. Afterward, Abe and Momo both agree that the last 3 batters were probably told to watch Mihashi and study his pitching. Out on the field, Hanai goes up for his second at bat but doesn't get a hit. Then it's Oki's turn. He hits the first pitch as a foul but misses the next 3, striking out. With 2 outs, Mizutani steps up to bat. Momo gives him advice based on the data they have about Kazuki. The count goes to 2 strikes and 1 ball, but then Mizutani swings and misses a forkball from Junta, ending Nishiura's turn at a fence quickly. Then, the Musashino first team arrives at the stadium they've been assigned to. Not long after, it starts to rain. Akimaru turns to Haruna and asks if the rain will affect pitching. But then, Akimaru starts to think that Haruna might be feeling nervous. After watching him for a moment, though, he realizes it's something different. Meanwhile, Kagayama is quietly thinking about how this will be his last tournament. Just then, Haruna comes up behind him and surprises him by grabbing his shoulders. Haruna points out how Kagayama has built up his muscles and says that now it's time to show off all the results of his hard training. Meanwhile, the boys in the Nishiura cheer squad overhear the girls chatting about how cool Mihashi is. Yumahara admits out loud that he actually joined the cheer squad hoping to meet girls. The cheer squad guys start talking among themselves, saying how awesome it would be if they had cheer girls of their own. On the other side, the Tosai players gather around their coach. The coach is clearly not happy and scolds them for their poor performance so far. He then asks if anyone has anything useful to report. Takashima speaks up and says he noticed something. During a stretch of 10 pitches, the catcher didn't even move to follow Mahashi's throws. From that, he figures that Mihashi must have amazing ball control. Kazuki adds his own thoughts too, saying that it's possible Nishiura's coach studied him closely, which would explain how they're able to predict his signs so easily. Finally, Junta adds that Nishiura already knows his pickoff move, which means they've really done their homework. The coach then sums it all up, saying that Mihashi is a pitcher with a wide variety of pitches and excellent control, but his pitch speed is on the slower side. Because of that, he tells the team that their goal should be to hit ground balls. When Tosai comes up to bat, Mashiba is first. He surprises everyone by laying down a safety bunt and takes off running toward first base at full speed. Momo and Abe quickly realize that Mashiba's real strength as the lead batter isn't just in hitting, it's in how fast he can run. Nishiura immediately tries to keep him close with a pickoff throw to first, not wanting to give him a chance to steal. Still, as soon as Mihashi commits to his pitch, Mashiba takes off and steals second base, even though it was a pitch out. Abe starts shouting instructions to the team, and Matsunaga, who's now up to bat, finds it kind of bold and funny how Abe gives out orders like that. Mihashi takes a quick look at Mashiba standing on second, then focuses back and throws the next pitch. Matsunaga bunts it high toward third base. Tajima runs up fast, grabs the ball, and throws it to first, getting the first out. Meanwhile, Mashiba makes it safely to third base. Abe signals the infielders with a block sign to keep the runner in check. From the mound, Mihashi stares at Mashiba on third with a blank expression. The count moves to 2 balls and no strikes, and then Shimazaki hits one that rolls just far enough to count as an infield hit. With 1 out and runners now on first and third, it's Aoki's turn to go up against Mihashi. Once again, Mihashi takes a glance at the runner on third. As he throws the pitch, Shimazaki makes a move and steals second base. Mihashi glances again at the third base runner, which clearly makes Mashiba feel uneasy. Aoki lays down a squeeze bunt that rolls to a stop right between home plate and the pitcher's mound. Abe instantly has to make a quick decision. He realizes that Tajima, who's playing third, won't be able to get to the ball fast enough. He thinks about going for it himself, but he also knows that if he does, Shimazaki might use that moment to go for home and score again. As Tajima and Mishiba both race toward the ball, he yells at Mihashi, who has also started to go for it, to pick it up and throw it to him using his right hand. As soon as Mihashi scoops up the ball, he quickly throws it to Abe, who is already crouched and ready at home plate. The entire stadium goes quiet as everyone holds their breath, waiting for the umpire's call. Afterward, the umpire finally announces that the runner is out. Afterward, Mihashi's throws pretty well once again, and now Nishiyura holds on to their lead against Tosai. As Mihashi gets ready for the next pitch, he gives a sharp look at Shimazaki, who's now the runner on third base. After the batter hits a foul ball, Kazuki steps up and hits one high into the air. Tajima runs underneath it and makes the catch, getting the third out and ending the inning. However, as Mihashi jogs back to the bench alongside Tajima, he suddenly slips and nearly falls. Luckily, Kazuki reaches out just in time and grabs Mihashi by the back, stopping him from hitting the ground. He tells Mihashi to be more careful, and both Mihashi and Tajima respond by calling him a nice guy. Meanwhile, Abe tries to convince Mihashi not to go up to bat, but Mihashi just blinks and avoids the conversation. In the end, Abe gives up and lets him do what he wants. At the same time, Momo and the others watch as Tajima explains how he can tell whether Junta is going to throw a pitch or try a pickoff move. While standing at the plate, Mihashi starts to think about why Abe didn't want him to bat. Then it hits him. Abe must be worried he'll get hurt again after that earlier slip. Even so, Mihashi doesn't want all the time he spent practicing batting to go to waste. As the pitch comes in, Junta throws a wild forkball that ends up hitting Mihashi. Right away, Junta takes off his cap and apologizes as Abe rushes over to check on Mihashi, but Mihashi quickly pops up and says he's totally fine. Afterward, Abe steps up to the plate while Mihashi stands on first base. After the pitch and with some help from Tajima, Mihashi makes a move and successfully steals second base. From the dugout, Momo gives the signal for a bunt. Abe notices it and gets into a bunt stance. Meanwhile, Kazuki alerts his infielders to be ready for a bunt, thinking that Abe must not be a strong hitter since he's batting ninth. However, Abe fakes a swing, then goes back to batting and finally lays down a push bunt. He aims it toward the same rough spot on the field where the ball had stopped earlier, and where Tajima had slid before. The ball lands right on the bumpy ground, making it hard to grab, and thanks to that both Mihashi and Abe easily make it to third and first. Junta ends up striking out Izumi, making it one out with runners on first and third. Sakiguchi is next to the bat. As he steps up, he glances over at third base, which startles Mihashi. Sakiguchi gives him a friendly smile, but Mihashi doesn't understand what it means. Nishihiro quietly reminds Mihashi of his job as the third runner. However, Sakiguchi thinks back to the calming stretches they do in the mornings and tries to feel that same calm again. Once he's relaxed, he focuses and gets ready to take on Junta. The count reaches 2 balls and 2 strikes when Momo gives the signal for a squeeze play. The moment Junta releases the ball, Mihashi dashes toward home plate, catching Tosai off guard. The pitch is thrown way outside, but Sakiguchi stretches and swings, barely hitting the ball. Afterward, Mihashi and Sakiguchi get a welcome when they come back to the dugout. Everyone is excited and happy for them, but Mihashi drinks a couple cups of water and then sits down on the bench. He thinks about changing his sweaty undershirt but decides it's not worth the trouble. Sayama goes up to bat but strikes out, and Mihashi runs out to the mound without waiting for Abe. When he gets there, he notices Abe isn't with him. While waiting, he starts throwing the ball to Tajima, but he watches him and starts to worry a little when he sees the weird smile on Mihashi's face. However, Mihashi's mom thinks he isn't nervous at all because he has a big smile on his face. Mihashi remembers that it's been a long time since she saw him smile like that. After he started going to Mahoshi, he stopped smiling so much. But when he used to visit during grade school, he always played on Kanu's team. Even though he cried a lot back then, he also smiled a lot while playing. That's why Mihashi always hopes to see Mihashi play against Mahoshi. However, Tosai's Motoyama gets a hit and reaches first base. Abe then tells Junta to bunt, which moves the runner along while getting one out. Next, Yamanoi hits a curveball towards second base, putting runners on first and third. Abe decides to switch to a fastball for the next pitch. Mikawa hits a pop-up that Izumi catches. Even though the ball is caught, the runners tag up and advance. Tosai manages to score a run, and there's still a runner on second. Finally, Mishiba hits a pop-up right back to Mihashi, and that's the third out of the inning. Right after the play, Mihashi suddenly gets a nosebleed and Hanai quickly rushes over to help him. However, Mihashi lies down on the bench as his teammates surround him, trying to stop the bleeding. But Abe starts to panic a bit when he sees this, but Momo remains calm and reassures him not to worry. Since it's the end of the 5th inning, they get a short break for field maintenance, giving them some extra time to handle the situation. Meanwhile, the moms in the stands start laughing and joking, suggesting that Mihashi might have gotten a nosebleed because he got too excited seeing the girls cheering. However, Mihashi's mom defends him, saying he's still innocent since he went to an all-boys junior high. As this conversation goes on, the announcers begin to read out the scores from other baseball games. However, Tajima hands Abe his fan to help him cool down while Abe keeps an eye on Junta as he practices his throws. After a little while, Mihashi speaks up, saying that he feels well enough to pitch however Abe wants. Meanwhile, Junta is struggling to hold the ball correctly when the game resumes. Tajima steps up to bat and hits a base hit. The next 3 batters all strike out one after another. However, Matsunaga strikes out, hoping for a curveball but misses it. Abe notices that it seems like everyone is expecting the curveball as he decides to throw another one, but Shimazaki hits a clean base hit. Next, Aoki steps up and squares to bunt but then changes his mind and hits the ball deep instead. Now there are runners on second and third with 1 out. Abe calls the team together for a quick meeting. During the huddle, Nishihiro relays a message from Momo, telling them that Tosai is likely planning a squeeze bunt, and that they can't let another run score. However, Abe decides to stick with the fastball. The team keeps a close eye on the runner at third before returning to their positions, ready to face the next play. Afterward, Kazuki lays down a bunt and Tajima quickly rushes to field it. He throws the ball to home plate, but Tosai manages to score, tying the game at 2-2. However, Abe reacts quickly and gets the second out at first base. He had been hoping for a double play with the fastball, but now he realizes he may have been too greedy with his strategy. Even though the score is tied, the Nishiura team stays pumped up, focused on getting the next out and keeping the game tied. Afterward, Motoyama strikes out with a fastball and slider for the last out, and Nishiura gets ready to be more aggressive. However, Mihashi takes out some mini strikeout flags and hands them to the moms. Meanwhile, Mihashi strikes out, but Abe gets a hit to middle right field and steals second. Izumi hits a ground ball to second base, getting the second out. Right then, Sakiguchi strikes out too, and Abe notices Mihashi is out of breath, knowing his precise control is taking a lot of energy. Mihashi tells Abe he really wants to win, and Abe tells him it's still possible, reminding him that there are 3 innings left. Moreover, Mihashi strikes out Junta with 3 fastballs, bringing his total to 10 strikeouts for the game. Yamanoi teases Junta as he steps into the batter's box, and then Junta hits a curveball just fair to right field. Nashiba then gets a hit, putting men on first and third with 2 outs. The rain starts again and Mihashi loses his footing and throws a wild pitch, letting the runner score, but Tosai takes the lead. Then, Sakiguchi decides to walk over to the mound to see how Mihashi is doing. Abe calls for another timeout and goes up to talk to him. He tells Mihashi that the rain is making things hard. When Abe touches Mihashi's hand, he feels how cold it is, so Abe tells him to calm down and get it together. Then, Abe calls for an intentional walk, but he makes it look like it wasn't planned, which makes Mihashi start to think that Nishiura might end up losing. Mihashi tells Abe that he can still keep pitching. Shimazaki hits foul balls on the next 2 pitches. Abe asks for a fast fastball next, but it ends up being a ball. Shimazaki hits another foul, then swings and misses, losing his hold on the bat. That makes him Mihashi's 11th strikeout. While both teams sit in the dugout, the officials get together for a meeting. Momo quietly hopes they'll let the game continue. However, Mihashi goes to the showers and Abe walks after him. Suddenly, Mihashi blurts out that Mahoshi and Kanu won in 7 innings since the game was called. Kanu pitched the last inning and got all 3 outs, then a janitor comes in and tells Mihashi to leave, saying he's not supposed to be in there. Afterwards, Mihashi stands up and Tajima and the others start teasing him by repeating Mihashi's name as if they are worshipping him. However, Sakiguchi quietly thinks Mihashi is kind of cute and wonders if it would be a problem if they kept living together. Tajima checks Mihashi's grip and feels how strong it is now, strong enough to make him flinch. Then Hanai calls out to them from the bench because the game is about to start again. Afterward, the Tosai guys talk about Mihashi's fastball as Kazuki realizes that they've switched their deciding pitch from the curveball to the fastball. He also understands that Abe has been planning pitches for all of them. Sayama is up first for Nishiura and Junta nearly hits him in the head, which scares Sayama. However, he thinks that getting hit would still get him on base, so he resolves to get a hit instead. Sayama hits the ball high into midfield. 3 fielders rush to get it, but the ball drops between them. Tajima steps up next. Kazuki expects Sayama to steal, but since Tajima isn't coaching, Sayama stays at first. However, Tajima hits the first pitch foul down the left field line, but Junta thinks his catcher is being cautious. The next pitch is high and inside, almost hitting Tajima. Junta gives Kazuki a wink, signaling that he can still pitch at full speed. Tajima fouls off the next fastball, and after the count goes to 2 strikes and 1 ball, Momo predicts a sinker will be coming. She signals to Tajima, but he isn't looking at her signs. Tajima continues fouling off fastballs, pitch after pitch. After 7 pitches, the rest of the Tosai players start cheering, and Nishiura's cheering squad responds by chanting Tajima's name. However, Tajima fouls another pitch, but he remains calm and composed. Kazuki calls for a sinker outside. Junta tries a pickoff to first base, and Kazuki then signals for another sinker down the middle, a pitch that Junta dislikes throwing. Tajima strikes out, but he thinks it might be his last at bat and wonders if his batting is up to the high school baseball level. However, Tajima apologizes to Momo before heading over to the first base coach. Sayama steals second and then third, with Tajima's help, leaving the Tosai coach puzzled. Hanai walks, putting men on first and third. The Tosai coach starts to realize that as soon as Tajima gets to coach first base, Nishiura begins to steal bases. Hanai then steals second while Oki is at bat. The Tosai coach starts to think that it's only Tajima who has figured out Junta's pitching motion. Tosai decides to intentionally walk Oki, loading the bases. Mizutani steps up to bat, but Momo thinks it would be too risky for him to attempt a squeeze bunt, so she signals for him to swing instead. Meanwhile, a caped Mihashi stands nearby, trying to encourage Mizutani. However, the image of Mihashi makes Mizutani chuckle. As he stands at the plate, thoughts about Mihashi flood his mind. Mizutani's determination grows stronger as he realizes that, despite his condition, Mihashi will give everything until the very end. Mizutani decides that, just like Mihashi, he must push himself to the limit as well. Mizutani swings and misses at the first pitch. Sayama calls out the magic words, "third base runner," to help Mizutani relax. The next pitch is a slider, and Mizutani manages to hit it, sending it past Shingo. Hanai attempts to squeeze another run in, but he's tagged out. Mihashi quickly follows up by striking out. Tajima tells Mihashi not to worry about his strikeout and reassures himself not to dwell on his own either, though he's still feeling down. Mihashi, Hanai, Izumi, and Sakiguchi gather around to cheer Tajima up. They tell him that the game isn't over yet, and there's still a chance for them to win. They promise they'll get him another at-bat. In the bottom of the 8th, Mihashi strikes out Aoki with 4 straight fastballs for the first out. Kazuki steps up next, watching the first fastball go by and missing the second. He swings at the next pitch as if it were a curveball, fouling off the fastball. Kazuki tries again, this time hitting a curveball for a single. He realizes that they switched to the curveball as soon as they noticed he was focused on the fastball, and he acknowledges that Abe truly has the right skills to be a catcher. Abe wonders if Tosai is still focused on hitting curveballs. Momo signals for a double play, and Abe calls for a curveball. Instead of bunting, it's a hit and run. Kazuki gets a head start for second while Motoyama hits the ball past the infielders. Now, there's one out with men on first and second. Junta fakes a bunt and swings at the curveball, hitting it past Tajima. Abe rushes to block the home plate, but Kazuki slides in and pushes him off. Kazuki scores, and Tosai takes the lead 4-3. Kazuki thinks Abe's blocking at the plate is weak. Yamanoi squares to bunt with runners on first and third. Momo signals for a pitch outside. The runners don't attempt to steal. The second pitch is hit straight back at Mahashi's head. Mihashi manages to retrieve the ball from behind but seems unsure of what to do next. Abe shouts for him to throw it to him. Mihashi hesitates before finally making the throw. This time, Abe successfully blocks the plate, preventing Tosai from adding another run to their lead. Abe glares at Mihashi angrily and calls for a timeout. He runs up to Mihashi, grabbing him by the collar and scolding him for hesitating to throw the ball. Sakiguchi steps in to intervene. Tajima explains that Mihashi was worried the big runner might knock Abe over while sliding. This explanation only serves to infuriate Abe further. Afterward, Abe tells Mihashi that he will not get injured and lets go of Mihashi, who is about to cry like Takemichi from Tokyo Revengers. Tajima reassures Mihashi that Abe is no longer angry, and Mihashi remembers Abe's promise that he will not get injured for the next 3 years. Mikawa strikes out on 3 fastballs for the third out. Kazuki notes that all the hits were off the curveball, and no one really made contact with the fastball. In the Nishiura dugout, Abe tells Mihashi that he's no longer angry. He also instructs Mihashi to conserve his strength for the last inning. Tajima thinks that if they don't tie the game, there will be no need to defend, and then Abe gets ready to bat. The cheer squad is shouting loudly, all of them yelling for Abe with excitement. Then, Abe steps up to bat and swings, but he misses. He watches the next pitch go by and it's another strike, but over on the bench. Hanai shows how much he wants to win, and Sakiguchi, sitting next to him, thinks it's crazy how close the game is. The Nishiura bench is standing and cheering, hoping Abe can get a base hit. The next pitch is a ball. Then Abe hits the ball down the third base line as he runs hard and gets to first base just before the throw. However, Izumi goes for a safety bunt as Abe runs to second. Izumi barely beats the throw to first. Now there are runners on first and second with no outs. Sakiguchi is up next. The coach thinks Nishiura might try to steal when Tajima gives the signal, so he lets Kazuki throw a pitch out. Tajima notices the catcher move to a different spot. As soon as the ball hits Kazuki's glove, he throws it to third base. It's a clear message to Tajima that they won't let him steal a third. Meanwhile, Sakiguchi bunts the next two pitches, but both go fouls. Momo gives him the signal to bunt again and to expect a fastball. Sakiguchi looks unsure, and Sayama notices, so he calls a timeout. He walks over and tells Sakiguchi not to worry about a forkball because they haven't thrown one since the fourth inning. Right before the timeout ends, Sakiguchi, looking nervous, takes off his glove and reaches out to take Sayama's hand. Afterwards, Sayama gives him strong, clear encouragement, saying he believes he can do it. After that, Sakiguchi is able to lay down a good bunt and both runners move up to second and third. However, Momo thinks it will be tough for Sayama to bunt pitches that Sakiguchi already had trouble with. Sayama tries hard to focus on the fastball and he swings and misses twice. Then he strikes out while watching a sinker go by. While waiting on the mound, Junta starts thinking about what he'll do after the game, like eating and getting some rest. Tajima fouls off the first pitch, then watches the next one go by for a strike. Everyone in the stadium is watching closely. Junta throws a sinker. Tajima adjusts his grip in the middle of his swing and smacks the ball deep into left field. Abe races home to score, and Izumi follows right after. Nishiura takes the lead. The Nishiura bench and the crowd explode with cheers, celebrating Tajima's amazing hit. However, Kazuki thinks about the hit and remembers how Tajima changed his grip during the swing. The Tosai coach admits to himself that it wasn't the players' fault but his own for not telling them to walk Tajima on purpose. He gives Kazuki a signal to go speak with Junta. Back on the field, Tajima takes off running as Hanai swings and misses at a sinker. Hanai ends up striking out, making it the third out, and now Nishiura heads out to play defense. Kazu talks to his team and tells them they underestimated their opponents. He gives them a short pep talk to fire them up before it's their turn to bat. It's the bottom of the ninth, and third baseman Mishiba steps up. He watches the first two fastballs go by. Abe senses that Mihashi is nervous about throwing another fastball, so he signals for a shoot. Mishiba bunts it close to home. Mihashi runs to grab it but ends up tripping. Tajima picks it up, but his throw comes just a split second too late. Mihashi drops to his knees. Abe shouts at him, saying if he can't pitch anymore, then they should switch him out for Oki or Hanai. Mihashi slowly gets up and looks over at Momo, who pretends to agree with what Abe said. Then Mihashi takes the ball from Oki, glaring at him. Oki thinks that if he were a pitcher, he'd be glad to be taken out since he has no confidence anyway. Oki believes Mihashi doesn't have confidence either and that he's scared but still chooses to pitch. It's like he's addicted to it. Abe calls for a full-strength fastball, and Mihashi throws a strike. He tries to throw the ball to Sayama at second base, but the runner is safe. Abe notices that Mihashi's full-strength fastball is down by 20%. The next pitch is a fastball down the middle for another strike. Afterward, Shingo tries to bunt the first fastball but it pops up into the air. He goes for another bunt on the next pitch, and it pops up again. Abe runs in fast, trying to catch it, but he just misses. Then he walks over to the mound and tells Mihashi he's sorry, which catches Mihashi off guard. Abe calls out to the infielders at first and third, warning them to be ready for a bunt. He asks Mihashi for another fastball right down the middle. Shingo swings this time and hits it high over Tajima's head, but Tajima jumps and manages to tip it towards Sayama. However, Sayama grabs the ball and quickly tries to throw it to first, but he can't hold it right and ends up tossing it too high for Oki to reach. Shingo makes it to first safely, and the runner on second takes off and gets to third. But Abe picks up the ball and throws it to third base, but the runner slides in safely. Next up is Aoki, Tosai's cleanup hitter, and there's one out with runners on first and third. The pressure starts to get to Mihashi and he begins to lose confidence. He feels like he's back at Mahoshi again, thinking that, just like before, the team will end up losing because of him. But right when Mihashi seems to be hitting his lowest point, his teammates show their support. They let him know they're all behind him and that they believe he can do it. Mihashi doesn't really understand how no one is upset with him. It's hard for him to believe that his teammates would say such kind things to him. Abe calls for a fastball, and Aoki hits it to center field. Izumi runs and dives, catching the ball with the tip of his glove for the second out. While still on the ground, he flicks the ball to Hanai, who throws it to home. Mashiba slides into home, crashing into Abe. Everyone waits for the umpire's call and turns out that Nishiura finally wins. Afterward, the Nishiura players head to the cheering section to show their thanks by bowing in return. On the Tosai bench, Kazuki holds the wind charm his younger sibling gave him. He also remembers the kind and encouraging words his family spoke to him. When he's ready, he stands up and tells the others to clear the bench. As they head out, Junta stops him. Struggling to speak and with tears in his eyes, Junta apologizes to Kazuki. Kazuki hugs Junta, and both of them start crying uncontrollably. Outside the stadium, Momo gives instructions to the boys, making it clear that there's still a lot of work ahead since they barely made it past Tosai. Kazuki walks over to Hanai and tells him that they'll be rooting for Nishiura. Hanai notices that Kazuki's eyes are red and he realizes that the big guy, who usually seems so tough, has been crying. Afterward, Shiga checks on Mihashi and finds that he's okay, though Mihashi is now fast asleep. Abe comments that Mihashi seemed to be running overdrive. Tajima agrees, saying Mihashi was acting strange, grinning oddly and speaking loudly. Ryo, curious about Mihashi's condition, finds himself face to face with Tajima. He soon realizes that Tajima is the guy who hit Junta's sinker and figured out his pitching motion. Ryo wants to talk to Tajima and asks for his cell number. Tajima writes it down on his hand. Ryo tells Tajima he'll text him later. Tajima asks who Ryo is, and Abe explains that he's Tosai's first-year reserve catcher. There was a second-year player, but he got injured. Shiga and Tajima are impressed by Ryo's knowledge. However, Abe and Tajima carefully carry the exhausted, sleeping Mihashi to the parking lot. Momo tells Mihashi's mom to take Mihashi straight home so he can rest. The guys are about to put Mihashi in the backseat when Mihashi's mom stops them. She removes Mihashi's wet clothes so they don't ruin her car before gently placing him inside. On the drive home, Mihashi's mom glances at Mihashi's peaceful sleeping face and thinks to herself how glad she is. Afterwards, in a flashback, it was winter when Kanu confronted Mihashi about moving to Saitama and possibly quitting baseball. Kanu told Mihashi that the baseball he played at Mahoshi wasn't real baseball. He urged Mihashi to never quit baseball, no matter what, and assured him that it would be different in high school. Mihashi, thinking to himself, realized he was no different from when he was in middle school. Even though he had won, he wouldn't change anything. The day after their first round match, Mihashi is absent from school. Abe meets Izumi and tells him that he plans to visit Mihashi with Hanai during their lunch break. It seems Hanai has something to give to Mihashi. Just then, Tajima comes running in, excited to announce that they too will be joining for lunch. Abe is confused, not understanding what Tajima means. Izumi explains that Tajima messaged Mihashi earlier, and Mihashi invited them to have curry for lunch. Abe gets upset with Tajima because Mihashi didn't text him back. As they talk, a group of girls walks by and mentions that they saw the game, and the girls even know Tajima's good strength in bed breaking. However, Abe asks Izumi and his classmates what they do during their lunch breaks. Tajima answers that they usually eat their packed lunches. However, he adds that eating too quickly, especially when it's their favorite food, makes them sad because it ends too soon. Abe learns from them that they often talk about food during lunch breaks. Izumi also mentions that they take a quick nap after eating. Tajima is already salivating at the thought of curry, but Izumi reminds him that they still need to go cheer for Hamada. The boys head off to watch Hamada's basketball game. While there, another group of girls cheers for Hamada, recognizing him from the cheering squad. Abe predicts that when Mihashi comes to school the next day, people will also recognize him. Later, Mihashi wakes to the ring of his cell phone and Ruri messaged him if she should tell Kanu about their win. Mihashi intends to tell Kanu himself and extends his thanks for coming to watch him yesterday. Then he receives a message from Abe telling him he and Hanai are coming over. Panic-stricken over the possibility of Abe and Hanai scolding him, he contemplates on escaping. Tajima rings the doorbell repeatedly, and Izumi tells him to stop. Finally, Mihashi answers the door. Tajima excitedly announces that the exam scores have been posted, and both he and Mihashi passed without failing any tests. Abe, noticing that Mihashi still looks sick, insists he should weigh himself. Izumi, thinking Abe nags too much, steps in and offers to stir the curry since Tajima's right hand is sore. Tajima explains that his hand is sore from exerting himself too much during his last at-bat when he hit Junta's sinker after several failed attempts. Abe quietly reflects that without Tajima's hit, they would have lost. Mahashi weighs in at only 50 kilos, having lost 3 kilos, about 7 pounds, since the start of the school year. Abe is about to yell at him but stops, realizing that this might be the reason Mahashi hates him. Instead of scolding him, Abe calmly asks what Mahashi ate yesterday. Mahashi, still upset, thinks Abe is asking something out of the ordinary, which must mean he ate something he shouldn't have. Trembling, Mahashi suddenly collapses. Abe is filled with frustration, wanting to punch him, but Hanai comments that he's not the only one feeling that way. Abe reflects that Mahashi isn't the type of person to hate anyone, so he figures Mahashi will somehow make it through this. Izumi, sensing the tension, steps in to save Mahashi from a frustrated Abe and asks him to set the table since they've finished reheating the curry. Afterward, Abe asks Mahashi for his thoughts on why they won. Mahashi starts to get emotional, remembering how he had been yelled at for not stepping down from the mound when he felt he couldn't throw anymore. He looks down, thinking it's because the team managed to get hits while he let up 4 runs. Unable to answer, he just stays silent. Hanai, noticing the tension, tells Abe not to glare at Mahashi. Hanai reflects on how he's always respected pitchers and given them shoutouts, but Mahashi always looks surprised each time, which frustrates him. He thinks if Abe didn't snap at Mahashi so often, he probably would have snapped by now too. Hanai even thinks back to middle school and realizes that he would have probably bullied someone like Mahashi back then. Tajima tries to make small talk and asks Mahashi why he transferred to Nishiura. Mahashi explains that it's because his mother used to study there, and also because of the bicycle and uniform. He adds that their family doesn't have much money, and to get into Nishiura, Mahashi had to put in extra hours studying for the entrance exams. The guys cringe at the thought that Mahashi was so determined to transfer. Abe doesn't quite get it, but Tajima understands, thinking it makes sense since Mahashi's mom is a graduate, and there's no cost for the uniform or transportation. Abe thinks the family has money, so they were trying to get him to stay at Mahoshi. On the subject, Tajima shares how his grandfather got sick one day. He went home after practice to find the house empty because everybody else was tending to his grandfather at the hospital. He will never forget how scared he was. That is why he lives closely now, so it will not be a problem. Hanai said he picked it because of its rank and ease of commute. Izumi and Abe picked it for the field. Abe looked at it first, then invited Sakiguchi over spring break. Abe knew Sakiguchi's face from the seniors. They were never in the same class in middle school. He first talked to him during entrance exams. Sakiguchi spent most of the time in the bathroom. The sports news mentions Mahashi's name. Mahashi starts to think about how he got hit and the guys were here to scold him and how they would have fun without him. Mahashi breaks down, cries, and apologizes for being selfish for not getting off the mound when Abe told him. However, Abe says it was a bluff. He told Mahashi to worry more about stalling before throwing home to him. Mahashi mentions Abe's text from yesterday. Abe says he was worried that he didn't cool down, then realizes Mahashi read his text and didn't reply. Abe beats up on him and tells him to stretch after eating. Abe suggests that Mahashi get a massage. Tajima mentions that there is a doctor nearby, and he'd be happy to accompany Mahashi there. Izumi gives Mahashi a piece of paper with comments from the other Nishiura players about the game. All of them say Mahashi did well. Izumi and Hanai say it's nothing special, and that they weren't being overly nice. Mahashi starts thinking back to Kanu. Later, Mahashi gets a message from Kanu, saying they won. Mahashi replies, telling Kanu that he won too and that he's happy he kept playing baseball. A few days later, Ryu gets back home only to find his older brother standing in front of him, looking serious. His brother starts telling him off, saying Ryu has a weak attitude and that's why he didn't get invited to Baijiaodai. He also says he's going to get revenge on everyone around Ryu, so Ryu needs to give him all the data he has from the game against Nishiura. The next day, during gym class, Tajima and Mihashi play soccer and work together to pull off a combo move. While that's happening, Shinika's friends come up to her and ask if she wants to be a cheerleader with them, since they all have a crush on Hamada. They also tell Shinika that they're already part of a dance club, which has a baddie, and they feel jealous because her rice cakes look better than theirs. Out of nowhere, Abe suddenly shows up and tells Shinika that from now on, Mihashi is going to eat 3 rice balls. When the girls hear that, they start thinking maybe Shinika is dating Abe, so they ask her about it. Shinika quickly says that Abe is a loser, and the vibe around them is way too nice for anything like dating to happen. At the same time, the match starts, and Izumi begins to wonder what Mahashi is even doing by himself out there. But it turns out Mahashi is struggling because he looks even shorter than Kevin Hart. While Mihashi keeps goofing off and acting like he has no clue what's going on, Tajima plays like a total superstar and puts in real effort, making Mihashi look even more silly in comparison. During lunch break, Mihashi, Izumi, Hamada, and Tajima all sit together at the same table, while Shinuka and the other girls keep staring at them with wide, almost creepy-looking eyes. As they eat, the boys start talking about what it would be like if they ever got mentioned in the news, joking around and laughing. Then, while they're still eating, Hamada randomly brings up Momo in the middle of the conversation and wonders out loud if she might actually be even thicker than Nicki Minaj. Later that night, Roka and Kazuki meet up for a reunion at a nearby restaurant, and Kazuki looks a bit surprised when he hears that Roka actually made his own brother take out the data too. After that, Kazuki says sorry on behalf of his whole team, and Roka starts talking to him about the mistakes they made. When Kazuki stands up to leave, Roka suddenly asks him where he would attack if he ever got another shot at the game, and Kazuki answers that he would go for the same spot Roka would. Roka tells Kazumi that he's currently at a training camp and adds that some of the players' mothers are there too, which surprises Kazumi because he didn't expect that at all. Furious, Kazumi then asks how Coach Takiai is doing, and Roka says the coach is full of energy and has some strange daily habits, including watching weird stuff online to blow off steam. After Roka walks away, Kazuki remembers last summer when everyone on the team was crying, but Roka just stood there quietly, and now, somehow, he's back in the middle of baseball again. The next day, the team goes to watch a match between two other schools, and the big, tough baddie Momo tells everyone to sit near the infield, close to third base. While they're sitting there, Momo lets them know that Tajima's injury still needs about another week to heal, which means he won't be ready in time for the third round of the tournament. She also tells them the player positions for the upcoming game and shows how good she is at talking people into things by managing to convince the injured Tajima to give up his cleanup hitter spot without too much trouble. Meanwhile, Iwatsuki High School is the first to go on offense, and it's known as a school that brings in over 60 baseball members every year. Although there's only one third-year student on the team right now, so most of their players are either in their first or second year. Shinuka tells everyone that last summer, Iwatsuki lost in the very first round. But Momo doesn't think that really matters and says this feels like their real first game of the summer. However, Hamada says that he watched their baseball news, and the first round was a really close contest for Sakatama. Hearing that, everyone gets surprised and shocked that he remembers their score. Mihashi also decides to watch carefully because whoever wins will be their next opponent. After that, the match keeps going, but the Nishiura team is too distracted because they're all busy watching the Sakatama match instead. Then, Mrs. Hanai and Mrs. Abe, who are the moms of Hanai and Abe, show up at the field. Momo talks to them for a bit and then leaves with them, but before going, she puts Hanai in charge of everything while she's gone. Out of nowhere, some of the team members start talking about their mommy or daddy issues, which really annoys Hanai. He gets upset and tells them that they actually split the parents into different groups so they could film parts of the game from different spots in their block. Meanwhile, Hanai and Abe's moms talk with Momo about how they're going to record the game, and during their chat, they also bring up a little about Momo's past. Momo shares that back in elementary school, she used to be part of a regional sports club. Then in middle school she played on the softball team, and later on, she became the manager of Nishiura's baseball club. At the same time, the Nishiura team starts talking about Sakatama's catcher, who's only a first-year student but has a perfect 1.00 batting average, and that fact really makes everyone nervous. Just then, Abe walks over to check on Mihashi and casually asks him about his weight, and Mihashi says it's 50. Abe starts thinking that if Mihashi keeps losing around 3 kilos every game, he's going to end up looking like a super skinny clown and probably won't survive the season. Abe then tells Mihashi that if he keeps pitching the way he's been doing lately, he might actually have a real chance of becoming one of the best. But Mihashi doesn't really hear him clearly and just looks confused instead. However, Mihashi tries to explain something to Abe, but Abe suddenly gets frustrated and starts getting mad at him, which makes Mihashi panic and run away. But later on, Abe asks Mihashi to tell him what he just saw now. But Abe knows Mihashi is about to lie, so he quickly asks if Mihashi has looked at the list Shinuka made, telling him that it took her a lot of time and effort to finish it and he should respect that. Then, Abe tells Mihashi to stop thinking too much and just focus on the batter in front of him. After that, it's Sakatama High School's turn to bat, and on the very first try, the batter gets out right away. When Abe sees this, he realizes that the batter's streak of getting hits one after another is now over. But that doesn't mean he's not a good player, because he's still a big guy who knows how to use the bat well and has good control when swinging it. Then it's Daichai's turn to bat, and he smacks a big home run, which makes Mihashi think about how there are still so many amazing players he doesn't even know. But Abe feels like everything will be fine as long as they can keep the other team from scoring too much. He even says that if things get tough, they can just walk every time and avoid risky plays. Meanwhile, Hamada gets a warning from Shiga, who tells him not to skip school just to go support Nishi during their match. Shiga explains that if the cheering squad becomes an official school club, then he'll allow them to miss class when it's really needed. He also adds that their cheering during the game against Tausei was done really well, and that it couldn't have been any better than it already was. Later on, Team Nishi struggles under the hot sun, but Shinuka shows up and gives them some banana protein juice to help them cool down. After that, everyone starts talking about their positions, and Hanai tells the group that Sakatama isn't very good at moving runners forward, so they all need to work on their pickoff times, not just him, but Mihashi, Abe, Sakiguchi, and Sayama too. Then Hanai brings up their offense, and Abe explains that he wants the team to aim for a shutout because going back and forth with Sakatama could drag the game past 9 innings. It's better, he says, to end it fast, and the team agrees to aim for a called game with a final score of 0-2. After that, everyone starts getting ready for catching practice while Mihashi is still looking around for his other glove. Right then, Sakiguchi shows up and asks Mihashi if he had something he wanted to say earlier. But before Mihashi can answer, Abe walks over and both of them get super nervous and almost panic. Abe tells Mihashi that if he has something to say, then he should just say it. But Sakiguchi keeps avoiding the question and won't bring it up again. Mihashi then explains that during the last game, Abe told him to change something. But Sakiguchi quickly says it's not a big deal and it's not like that at all. Still, for Mihashi, if Abe ever says he's not good enough, then he feels like everything is over for him. Later on, Sakiguchi starts to think that maybe the reason Mihashi is so attached to pitching is because he had a tough and hurtful time in middle school where he was bullied. Right before the game starts, since Sakatama picks to go on offense first, Momo turns to Hanai and tells him that he has the chance to be the hero today. Hearing that surprises him a little and makes him feel a bit nervous. The game starts with Mihashi as the pitcher, and he tries his hardest to do a good job. Then Hanai comes up as the cleanup batter and does a squeeze play, wondering if Momo is the one giving him the signal for it. After that, Momo tells the team that they should try to get at least 2 runs during the first inning. Next, it's Tajima's turn, and now he's the baseman. He hits a bad pitch but somehow pulls off a great run and scores. Sakiguchi then steps up, and when Abe sees Hanai's strange safe call, he gets confused and starts thinking the batter is already on base, which seems to bother the others around him. After Hanai's turn, Izumi steps up as the batter, and Momo notices that only right-handed hitters have taken swings so far. She thinks that if they wanted to play it safe, a bunt would be the best choice, but instead, she signals Izumi to go for a strike first. Izumi ends up hitting a long shot that surprises everyone, and then Tajima runs hard. In the end, they both make it safely, and the play turns out really well for the team. After that, it's Hanai's turn to bat, and Momo thinks that the other team's defense should be extra careful, so Hanai should go for a squeeze play. Since they only need 2 points, Hanai feels excited and doesn't want to waste the chance, so he tries to make it look like he's going for a regular hit. Hanai pulls off the squeeze shot and scores just in time, and everyone cheers loudly for him. But then Tajima tells him not to be satisfied with just that, and Hanai doesn't know what to say or how to respond. While on defense, Abe tells Mihashi that he plans to set up inside the box, so Mihashi should throw the ball farther out than his mitt. He also tells Mihashi not to pay attention to the old man sitting in the crowd who's jeering and asking for a walk, because it's only aimed at him. Abe reminds Mihashi that he's just pitching as Abe tells him to, but Mihashi calmly replies that he'll handle the jeering from the crowd on his own. After that, Mihashi pitches a great ball, and next up is Oyama, who steps up to bat with a lot of confidence because others have told him it's going to be an easy hit. But with just a single swing, Oyama gets out when Mihashi catches the ball. Later, it's Abe's turn to bat, and he thinks the pitcher is deciding the pitch order while the catcher keeps making him shake his head with confusion. Abe takes a swing and hits a shot, and Momo realizes that this was the shot they needed to check everything. She remembers how, during a previous game, they allowed a stolen base when a left-handed batter was at the plate. Then, on offense, Abe steals a base after catcher Daichi Sakura misreads a sacrificial bunt. Meanwhile, Mihashi shows his strong determination to help the team win by giving it his all and trying to hit the ball for the game, and the score is now 0-2, with the other team at 0-1. After that, it's Mihashi's turn to bat, and like always, he looks super nervous and scared. Even though he's shaking, he still manages to hit the ball and runs as fast as he can to try and get a point. But Sujita from the other team picks up the ball quickly and throws it right on time, and Mihashi ends up getting out. While all that happens, an old man with a manly voice says Mihashi did a good job, and when the mamas hear him talk, they all start blushing, and it turns out that he is Abe's father. Later, it's Tajima's turn to bat, and he's shaking like a girl just asked for his number. Momo wants him to go out and hit, but because his injury is still bad, she knows she can't let him. So Tajima tries anyway, but he gets out on his very first swing. Momo starts to think maybe she didn't take Sakatama seriously enough. After that, it's Sakatama High School's turn to bat, and Mihashi is the one pitching. He throws really well and manages to get 2 of their batters out. Then, Ikehara from Nishiura steps up to bat and manages to hit the ball, but just like before, someone catches it right away, and he ends up getting out. Even though he really gave it his all and tried his best to make a difference, it seems like luck just isn't on Nishiura's side today. After that, Sakiguchi comes up as the first batter and starts showing off his great batting skills, managing to score a point for the team and lifting everyone's spirits. Then, it's Izumi's turn to bat, and he does something surprising. He completely changes his batting stance by switching from using his right hand to his left. However, Ikehara looks confused and asks another guy if Izumi is really left-handed, but the other guy tells him no, he's not. Still, the match keeps going, and even though Ikehara's pitch is perfect, Izumi manages to hit the ball. After that, it's Hanai's turn to bat, and Momo tells him to go ahead and swing. Hanai follows her advice and hits the ball hard, but someone on the other team catches it, and just like that, he ends up getting out. Then it's Abe's turn to bat, and he's hoping Sakatama will walk him. Ikehara throws the ball, but Abe stands still and doesn't swing, kind of like how Mizutani did earlier. After that, the Sakatama team comes together and a bunch of them start crying. Kai thinks to himself that he needs to be more serious now. Because of what happened with the teammates who quit, he feels like he can't be too strict, but he still promises to try his best for the team. After that, it's Oki's turn to bat, and he goes for a bunt, but Daichai throws the ball like a maniac, and Oki ends up getting out. Watching this happen, Ikehara realizes they were able to stop a squeeze play this time. Then it's Nishiura's turn to bat again, and when Mihashi throws the ball, the batter gets out. After that, Sujita steps up to the plate, but because he makes a bad move, the pitch turns into a strike and he misses his chance. After that, Sujita makes a strong hit and shouts that they're going to start fighting back now. Then it's Tai's turn to bat, and he does a really good job, hitting the ball and making it to base safely. After him, it's Daichai's turn to bat, and while all this is going on, the moms watching from the side start whispering to each other, wondering how this baseball game ended up getting so intense and wild suddenly. After that, it's Nishiura's turn to bat, and Mihashi goes up first. Unfortunately, he gets out because he's still struggling, just like in his middle school days. Next, Tajima goes to the field, and this time he manages to score for Nishiura thanks to Sujita's poor performance. Meanwhile, Tai can't help but wonder why Tajima keeps going for bunts, especially since his past records with outfield hits and strikeouts would make him a perfect choice for the 4th batter. Meanwhile, Mihashi keeps thinking about the bunt from earlier, and it really bothers him, but Hanai tells him to stay positive and not let it get to him. Later on, the game keeps going well for Nishiura. Izumi steps up to bat and makes a good hit, while Tajima runs as fast as he can and makes it to base safely. After that, Momo gives Mihashi and the rest of the team a prep talk, and Hanai start to wonder if he's not dependable, since even with an injury, everyone seems to count on Tajima more. After that, it's the bottom of the 4th inning and Nishiura is batting. Hanai is the first to go up. He misses the first pitch because he's thinking about Momo's big water jugs instead of the game. Momo watches from the side, worried that Hanai isn't focusing like he should. Hanai starts to wonder if he can really handle the pressure of being the 4th batter now that he's in his 3rd year of middle school. He misses 2 more pitches in a row. After striking out, he turns to Mihashi, who looks nervous like always and says sorry for not bringing in the 7th run. Abe then shouts at Mihashi, which scares both Hanai and him, and then Hanai wonders if Mihashi is okay because he only raised his voice over a meaningless topic. After this round, he wants to talk to Mihashi and starts wondering if he had taken out his frustration on him earlier. Then the game starts again, and Mihashi throws a perfect pitch that gets one of the other team's players out. Seeing that, all the scary-looking moms in the stands start clapping their cheeks in surprise. Next, Soomura comes up to bat, and Mihashi strikes him out too with another perfect pitch. When Hanai gives him a compliment for that, Mihashi starts freaking out like someone just got praised by their crush and doesn't know what to do. After that, Nishiura goes up to bat and Abe is the first one to step up. He gets 4 screwballs in a row, and Momo starts to worry that they've been backed into a corner. She hopes the next pitch won't be another screwball, but it ends up being a screwball again, and now Abe is in trouble. Ikehara starts thinking that if the other team scores just one more run, they'll lose by a shutout, and that would mean there won't be another game left for tie. So, Ikehara decides to keep throwing screwballs, and he ends up throwing 7 screwballs in a row. But Momo starts thinking that the next batters might do better against those screwballs, especially Hanai, who's feeling so much pressure that he forgets to cheer for the players like he usually does. After that, the ground maintenance starts and Abe is super angry at Mihashi, so Hanai decides to go talk to him. When he gets to Mihashi, he says sorry for what happened earlier. Mihashi tells Hanai that Tajima said he could be a pitcher too, and Hanai gets confused, wondering what Mihashi is even talking about. Later, Abe asks Mihashi why he didn't come back right after Hanai told him to and asks what Hanai was telling him, and then the other clown runs away saying Hanai was bullying Mihashi. After that, it's the top of the 6th inning and Sakatama High School is up to bat with Mihashi on the mound, feeling motivated and ready to work hard. After Atsushi gets out, he walks over to Tai and starts crying, saying they're going to lose. Then, the rest of the team begins crying too, but Tai tells everyone to stop and get ready to defend. After that, it's Nishiura's turn to bat and Mihashi steps up. When he gets a screwball, he freezes up like he got hit by lightning. Then Ikehara switches things up and throws a regular strike instead of a screwball, and this time Mihashi hits the ball right on time and gets a score. After Mihashi, Tajima steps up to bat, and Ikehara knows Tajima has an injury, so he throws a screwball even though Tajima is trying to bunt. Then it's Hanai's turn, and he looks really confident, like he's sure he can get some extra runs for the team. But when Ikehara throws the pitch, Hanai doesn't move at first, and then on the next shot, he swings but ends up getting out. Momo tells everyone not to sigh or feel down because they already got 8 runs and are really close to winning. In the end, Nishiura beats Sakatama in a called game with a score of 8-0. The next day, Team Nishiura runs into the baseball players from Sakatama on the train, and the Sakatama team asks them if they want to do some practice games together. While that's going on, the boys from Nishiura start blushing as they remember how they clapped Shinaka's cheeks in a different train cabin. Abe snaps them out of it by saying they should agree to a practice match. Then Daichai comes over and asks Mihashi to compete with him. But Mihashi, who's a nervous wreck and has major social anxiety, starts shaking all over. After Daichai walks away, Abe tells Mihashi that he should at least try to compete with him during the practice match. However, Abe tells Mihashi that even if you were a pitcher who could throw fastballs, it's okay to just walk a batter sometimes. After hearing that, Mihashi starts wondering if Abe really cares about him that much. Then he makes a promise to himself that he'll eat a lot and take good care of his arm and elbow. Later on, Abe tells Mihashi not to pitch in the practice match and Mihashi agrees without any trouble. Then Abe explains what intentional walking is and says that some pitchers who don't like it might act a little differently. Mihashi asks if Haruna would lose motivation because of that, but Abe says Haruna actually doesn't like using his full strength in games. Meanwhile, the cheer girls get a message from Mihashi's mom saying that the team won their match. After hearing the good news, the girls get excited and say it's time to show off their new outfits. Suddenly, another girl walks into their room and says this place isn't meant for dancing. It turns out she's someone named Achai. She starts checking out the girls' bodies in a weird way and begins rating their outfits like she's judging a contest. Then, out of nowhere, Achai starts taking off her clothes in front of everyone and begins talking about Hamada, who is basically everyone's national crush. She says he lives alone and had to repeat a year because he missed too many classes. Meanwhile, Mihashi and the rest of the team arrive at the field and Tajima starts goofing around by stuffing 2 watermelons under his shirt and pretending to be Momo. Afterwards, Shiger wraps some bandages around Mihashi's injury and tells him that he'll be doing a light rally with Tajima for 30 minutes, but there won't be any throwing involved. Still, Momo notices that Tajima will be able to heal his injuries soon too, and she starts thinking about their next game, which is against Kunin High School in the 4th round. She decides that for fielding, they'll return to their original positions, but the real issue is the batting order. So, she figures they'll have to go back to the same batting order they used during the Tausei match. Later on, Tajima tells Mihashi that being left-handed feels kind of nice, so Mihashi asks if he wants to be a pitcher, but Tajima shakes his head and says that if he became a pitcher, he wouldn't get to bat as much, and he really likes batting. Then Tajima asks Mihashi if he thinks he could beat Oki, but Mihashi says that as long as Abe is with him, there's no way he'll lose. The next day, Abe checks in with Mihashi and asks how much he weighs now. Mihashi says it's 53 kilos today, and after hearing that, Abe thinks to himself that Mihashi has gained most of his weight back. After a while, the Nishiura team arrives at the stadium and Mihashi wonders if this place is okay because it seems different from the opening ceremony. However, Hanai tells everyone that this place is in Umiya and the stadium is run by the city. Then, the whole team heads onto the field. Their moms are already there, sitting in the stadium seats and waiting for them. After that, Shinuka shares some details about the team they're facing, and the players start thinking that Baijiaodai has a pretty strong image. Last year, Baijiaodai got knocked out in the first round, but they managed to win a game during the fall season. Afterwards, Momo shows up and Hanai compliments her, saying she's amazing and that they're doing so well all thanks to her. Then he suddenly asks how old she is. Momo tells them that she's only 23, and right after that, things get a little awkward between everyone. Meanwhile, Abe watches the catcher Kurata and thinks he's really impressive because he's good at hitting. On the other side, the cheer group gets into their usual weird outfits, ready to cheer in their own freaky style. Afterwards, Nishiura's match starts, and Roka and his teammate, who has a soft and girly vibe, start wondering why Nishiura looks so full of energy today. Roka guesses that it might be because their third round game happened right before summer break, but his teammate thinks it's actually because Momo's huge watermelon-sized chest distracted them and messed up their batting order. Then, Roka says it's probably more about Tajima's injury. He remembers how they wanted Tajima to join their team back in middle school, but Tajima never seemed interested in playing with them. After Mihashi and the others finish their pitching, Roka tells the other coach to pay close attention because they managed to hold Tausei to just 4 runs using that same pitch. Then Roka explains that he watched 2 of their games and noticed something. Mihashi never shook his head even once, which means he's probably throwing exactly what the catcher tells him to. After that, Nishiura wins the game with a score of 6-3, and it's time for ground maintenance. Everyone starts cheering loudly for Nishiura, while Mihashi stretches beside Abe on the field. Later on, everyone carries their bags to the parking lot since nobody is giving them any special help or treatment. While they're walking, Mihashi gets approached by Abe's dad, who casually asks him if he's scared of Abe. Later that night, Mihashi gets home and gets really excited to see his dad after such a long time. When he spots some bean jam buns, he grabs them and runs off happily. His dad smiles and says he's glad Mihashi won and that it's been a while since he caught his pitches. Mihashi tells him that he pitched in a game today, so he can't throw anymore right now. Later, Mihashi thinks back on the 5 safe hits and the 3 runs scored from line drives. He feels a little down, thinking it's already bad enough that they hit his pitches, but he tells himself he's not going to pitch so selflessly anymore. Meanwhile, Abe is having dinner with a sour expression on his face, and his father brings up Mihashi. Abe replies bluntly, saying that Mihashi does trust him, even if things can get awkward. He admits he finds it much easier to communicate with literally anyone else besides Mihashi, which sparks a bit of an argument between them over how Abe handles things. The next day, a reporter gets clearance to do a feature on Nishiura's team. While exploring the area, she runs into Momo. She is immediately struck by how cool and confident Momo looks, even thinking to herself that Momo's giving off serious baddie energy with those talents. She introduces herself as Shimizu from Seikaiou Sports, and right away, she's impressed, not just by the baseball field itself, but by the players' strong sense of discipline. She notices how they make sure to keep the bench spotless, even during breaks, and it leaves a solid impression on her. Meanwhile, the team notices the woman hanging around for the interview. They're a bit curious but also cautious. Hanai pulls Hamada aside and quietly tells him to keep things under wraps. They don't want the presence of a reporter throwing off anyone's focus. Afterwards, Abe and Mihashi lock up their bikes, and Abe asks if there's anything Mihashi is dissatisfied with when it comes to him. But instead of answering properly, Mihashi starts acting all frantic and nervous again, practically spiraling like usual. The next day, Hamada reunites with Mihashi's dad after a long time. Meanwhile, all the moms gather and get introduced to Haruka and Asuka, who are Hanai's sisters. Back with the team, Momo gives them a heads up, tells them that the opposing team's starting pitcher is Takenouchi, and how quickly they get a handle on his pitches will be the key to winning the game. Later on, Abe tells Mihashi that the opposing team has 3 pitchers ready to go, so Mihashi can't afford to let his guard down. Nishiura is relying entirely on him for pitching. But instead of panicking, Mihashi thanks Abe and he tells him how grateful he is for everything from managing the ball count to helping him stretch, even down to making sure he had rice balls. After that, Nishiura's game with Baijiaodai begins, and Baijiaodai gets to bat first. Their first batter is Kawashima. Mihashi throws the first pitch, but Kawashima doesn't even move. He already knew what kind of pitch it would be. Abe quickly notices that Kawashima likes pitches near the inside corner, so he tells Mihashi to throw a slider that moves away into a ball. Even though they try this plan, Kawashima still hits the ball and makes it to base, and he brings in a run. The Baijiaodai team lights up with excitement because their prediction paid off. It turns out that Baijiaodai's team had been meticulously gathering and analyzing data. They compared Tausei's game records with Abe's patterns and pitch sequences, using that information to predict Nishiura's moves with surprising accuracy. By studying Abe's habits and strategy, they managed to figure out how Mihashi would pitch, which is how Kawashima was able to anticipate the throw and get a hit. Afterwards, the opposing team scores again and their players burst into loud singing to throw off Nishiura and mess with their focus. Now it's Wada's turn at bat, their top hitter with the most hits so far. Abe thinks it might actually be smart to walk him but still wants to see if Wada is aiming for a shoot ball or something else. Meanwhile, Wada stays sharp and he knows he's strongest when hitting outside pitches, and he starts thinking the next one could be a curveball heading out wide. When Mihashi throws the ball, Wada manages to hit and gets 2 home runs easily, and now the opponent team has 3 points extra while Nishiura has 0. Abe then comes to Mihashi, saying everything is his fault. After that, it's Nishiura's turn to go up and bat, and Hamada starts bragging that now they're going to show everyone what real beasts really look like. Izumi is the first batter for Nishiura, but he ends up getting out on the very first pitch. It seems like the other team has been watching Nishiura's players very carefully. Then Sakiguchi steps up next, and the other team already knows he always goes for bunts, so they don't have much data on how he hits normally. Still, Sakiguchi swings and hits a quick, clean shot. Then Sayama comes up to bat and he also goes for a bunt, but just like before, he gets out. After that, it's Tajima's turn, who is known for being an amazingly good player. When the pitcher throws the ball at him, Tajima swings and smashes an insane shot, then takes off running for home, but in the end, he still gets out. Next, it's Baijiaodai School's turn to bat and the first batter is Matsushita. However, Abe wants to try using a curveball right after a slider, but Matsushita doesn't swing at it. Then, when Mihashi throws a curveball, Matsushita finally hits it, but he ends up getting out. Later on, Mihashi starts getting really nervous because every batter is doing the opposite of what the notes say, like all the data they have is useless now. Mihashi begins to cry as he tries to tell Abe and Momo that the pitch courses are wrong, and that's when Abe and Momo figure out that Baijiaodai must have collected a lot of new data on Nishiura. She goes on to explain that they scored easily in the first 2 innings because they read through the battery's mix of pitches. Momo notices that even the defense against them is skewed toward Nishiura's tendencies. She strictly tells them that when it's their turn at bat, they should confirm the opponent's fielding positions. After that, it's Abe's turn to bat, and he quickly notices that the fielders have all shifted to the right side. Abe stays still when the pitcher throws the first ball, but when the pitcher throws again, Abe swings and tries to hit it, though he misses. Meanwhile, on the bench, Tajima and Hanai start arguing about something related to their families. Hanai feels confused about why he's getting so mad, but deep down, he knows that listening to Tajima's advice will help them get more runs. Later on, Abe and Mihashi come up with a plan to use a fake sign refusal to mess with Baijiaodai's team. But Mihashi doesn't really know how to give a sign at all, so Abe tells him to just shake his head one time at the fake sign. They try practicing it, but Mihashi has a hard time doing it right. It turns out that no one has ever asked Mihashi to give a sign before, so he doesn't know how to do it properly. After that, it's Baijiaodai's turn to bat again, and their players start feeling strange because their plans don't seem to be working anymore. Even though Nishiura now knows how much Baijiaodai has planned and studied them, Abe chooses to act like he doesn't know anything, so they can use that same information to trick Baijiaodai. But Mihashi has a tough time for a bit because, even though he's looking at the same data as Abe, he can't figure out what pitch is coming next. The other batters who step up just keep guessing where the ball will go, but it keeps moving in ways they don't expect, since Nishiura is now changing things up. After that, it's Nishiura's turn to bat again and Mizutani is the first one to go. Momo gives him a sign to just watch the first pitch. Even though his smelly armpits are bothering him and making it hard to focus, Mizutani still hits a really good shot. Then Mihashi comes up to bat and he remembers that Momo told him to keep a close eye on everything because they can't afford to mess up now. Momo signals Mihashi to go for a bunt, but Mihashi looks like he's never done one before and struggles with it. Still, he manages to bunt the ball and quickly runs to make it to base safely. After that, Izumi gets ready to bat and Momo gives him a signal to go for a bunt. He thinks to himself that doing a bunt right now wouldn't be that strange, especially since the fielders are standing around the middle, thinking there's no way he'll bunt. Izumi goes ahead and pulls off the bunt successfully. After that, every player follows Momo's instructions exactly as she gives them. Finally, it's Tajima's turn to bat, and the moment he steps up, everyone watching gets excited because they know he's Nishiura's best and strongest player. But then, Tajima ends up getting 2 strikes because of the fastballs, though he still manages to hit the ball after that. While running, he starts to notice that all the pitches he's faced so far have been mixed up a lot, like one was a fastball then a changeup, shoot, which makes it harder to guess what's coming next. At the same time, Kazuki turns to Roka and asks why he picked Kurata to be the main catcher instead of choosing Miyata. Roka answers by saying it's actually because Miyata is the better player. After that, 5 Baijoutai players lose one after another, and Kazuki starts getting curious and asks what kind of person Kurata really is. Since he's been watching Roka closely for a while now, Kazuki starts thinking that maybe Roka is secretly giving signs to the players from the stands. Later on, Abe starts thinking that if they manage to get one more good hit, then Baijoutai will probably come up with a whole new plan to deal with them. After that, the match continues and it's Hanai's turn to bat. He misses the first pitch, but on the next one, he hits a clean and solid shot that gets everyone fired up. Mizutani comes up, and even though he starts shivering on the field because of his smelly and ugly armpits, he still somehow manages to hit a great shot. Everyone starts joking and wondering if they should try tickling too, since it seems to be working. In the end, Nishiura scores another run, and Mahashi thinks to himself that even if he can't score more runs on his own, the rest of the team will definitely keep things going. Then, it's Baijoutai's turn to bat again, and Takenouchi is the first one to step up. He already knows that the pitch patterns have changed, so he thinks the next one might be a slider coming to the inside. But Mihashi is fully focused and determined not to let Baijoutai score any more runs, and the only thing he can really do now is trust Abe completely and follow whatever signals he gives. Abe wonders that in this situation there is no possibility that they are not prepared for a squeeze, but it will also mean that they can't shake that pitcher with just a stance. Then, Momo gives Abe a signal, thinking that if they can turn the count from 0-1 to 0-2, then the game will shift in their favor. Mihashi throws a fastball, and the batter gets a strike. Then Mihashi quickly takes out the next batter too. But Abe knows that the batter has already hit the shoot ball before, and they've already shown him the curve and slide as well. So Mihashi decides to go with a fastball again, and this time the batter hits it, and Baijoutai ends up scoring their 5th run. After that, Momo becomes really upset when she hears that Mihashi has never once disagreed with a pitch call from Abe, but she decides not to scold him right now because she wants him to keep his head in the game until it's finished. Meanwhile, Baijoutai's first pitcher, Takenouchi, gets pulled out of the game and is replaced by Kashima, who comes in as the new pitcher. At the same moment, Kitamura is also taken out of the left field, and Kashima takes over that position too. Then, Izumi steps up to the plate to bat, and he notices that Kashima's pitches are fast but not always accurate, which makes them hard to predict. However, Izumi still manages to make a solid hit and gets on base, showing that he handled the pitch well. After that, another batter comes up, and Kashima again throws with full strength, which surprises even his own teammates, who start wondering why he's pitching so fast all of a sudden. Even though the pitches are strong, Nishiura's players still manage to hit the ball and earn a few more runs. While all this is going on, Mihashi begins to act stiff and robotic, so Hanai reaches over and grabs his headgear to snap him out of it. Then, Kashima keeps throwing his usual powerful fastballs, and everyone watching starts getting impressed by his speed. The game goes on while Roka stands up and says he's heading to the restroom, but the Baijoutai players keep looking out for his signals and don't act until he gives one. At the same time, Abe quietly tells Mihashi to be careful because if Abe ever hits him, he could end up seriously hurt. However, Abe is the next one to go up and bat, but he misses every single pitch that comes toward him and doesn't get a hit. After him, it's Mizutani's turn, and he also faces Kashima's fast pitches, which makes him think that Kashima might be some kind of ball-throwing machine because of how strong and quick the throws are. Then, it's Mahashi's turn to go up and bat, and the other players tease him by joking that if the ball hits him, he might go straight to heaven because of how fast and hard Kashima is pitching. But surprisingly, Mihashi somehow manages to bunt the ball by accident, and right away, He starts running as fast as he possibly can to try and help his team score a point. Unfortunately, even though he tries his best, both Mihashi and the teammate running with him end up getting out and the chance to score is lost. Next, it's Kurata's turn to bat, and when Mihashi throws the first pitch, it's called a ball. Mihashi tries again and throws another pitch, but this time Kurata keeps hitting every throw until he finally gets out. After that, a new player steps up to bat, and Abe starts wondering if the guy is daydreaming because he keeps closing his eyes whenever Mihashi pitches the ball toward him. Then, the player does a safety bunt and manages to make it to base safely. As the game keeps going, there's a moment when Abe makes a successful dive toward home plate, but while trying not to step on Kurata's arm, he ends up spraining his left knee. The game takes a short break, but even during the pause, Abe keeps telling the doctor that he's okay and that he can still keep playing. However, his leg is hurt so badly that he can't even stand on it properly or put any weight on it at all. Because of this, Abe is taken out of the game and replaced by Tajima, who takes his position. At the same time, Nishihiro is sent to play in left field and Mizutani is moved to third base. Even though they're worried, Mihashi and the rest of the team make up their minds to give it their all and try their best to make up for Abe not being there. After that, Hanai starts going wild, talking about how Mihashi's control is seriously amazing. Like he doesn't even notice the batter standing there, and he says that's probably the reason why Abe likes Mihashi so much. Meanwhile, Abe is getting his injured leg wrapped by Shiga, and Momo tells him that if he doesn't fix the grumpy look on his face, she's going to send him straight to the hospital. Then, it's Wada's turn to bat, and Mihashi decides to trust Tajima's signs for the pitch. So, right after throwing a fastball, Mihashi follows it up with a curveball. Everyone starts wondering if Mihashi is doing okay, because if he breaks down now, the whole game could fall apart for the team. But Mihashi understands that Momo really wants this next pitch to be a strike, and Tajima is signaling for a full-speed fastball, so Mihashi throws it with all his strength, but it ends up being another ball. This time, Wada swings and hits it and he starts running, aiming for a 7-run home run, but Team Nishihiro works together and manages to get him out just in time. At the same time, Baijiaodai starts to catch on and figures out that Momo might be the one calling out whether the pitches should be strikes or balls. Then, Miyata steps up to bat, and Tajima already knows that Miyata prefers pitches on the outside corner, even though he's mostly been hitting the ones that come inside. Mihashi throws a slider with a downward roll and it's a really good pitch, but Tajima starts thinking that Mihashi might not be reading his signals the right way. So next, Mihashi throws a high outside pitch and Miyata ends up getting out right away. After that, all the Nishihiro boys rush over to check on Abe and wonder why he has his leg raised up like that. But Abe tells them not to worry about him and just focus on hitting their scores and finishing the game strong. At the bottom of the 7th inning, it's Nishihiro's turn to bat, and just like always, Izumi is the first one to go up. After that, Hanai steps up and starts putting pressure on the pitcher, trying to push him to throw harder so Hanai can hit an even stronger shot. But things don't go as planned, because Hanai can't even make contact with the ball. Then, Tajima steps up to the plate and right away, he understands that he has to be really focused now because Kashima, the new pitcher, is in top shape and throwing strong, accurate pitches. While this is going on, Abe, who is sitting out because of his injury, tells Mihashi to put all his trust in Tajima and make sure to carefully follow every signal Tajima gives during the rest of the game. However, Abe starts to feel guilty about Mahashi's absolute obedience to him and resolves to apologize after the game. Mihashi feels guilty that Abe is the only one to strategize and has to look after him. However, Mihashi knows deep down that Abe probably thinks he broke the promise they made, and it really bothers him that he ended up breaking it, even though keeping that promise was nearly impossible from the start. After that, it's Baijiaodai's turn to bat again and Kashima is the first one to go up. One by one, the batters start getting out, but at the same time, Baijiaodai's players begin carefully taking notes on the kinds of pitches Mihashi is throwing. Then, they tell Kashima that from now on, Kento will be the one giving him the pitching signals. After Kashima hits the ball and goes for the run, he just stops in the middle and gets out. Everyone starts wondering what's going on with Mihashi and if something is bothering him. Finally, the game reaches the 8th inning, and Nishihiro now needs 4 more runs with only 2 innings left to play. Nishihiro steps up to bat, but Kashima's fastballs are just too strong for him, and he doesn't stand a chance, so he feels disappointed and walks back quietly. Later on, it's Izumi's turn to bat, and when he gets a breaking ball, he starts swinging his bat wildly like a total idiot at first. But then he pulls himself together, focuses properly, and ends up hitting a really impressive shot that lifts the team's spirit. After that, Mihashi throws his 100th pitch, and it's a fastball. Right at that moment, Momo starts giving signs, but the players from Baijiaodai begin copying her movements and secretly pass those signals to their batters. Little by little, Mihashi starts losing his focus because he's already thrown over 100 pitches and he's getting tired. He also realizes that the new batter, Yano, has already managed to score 2 runs before. Even so, Momo gives him a clear sign to throw a strike, and Mihashi follows it. And this time, it actually turns out to be a strike. But then Yano manages to hit a curveball and scores another run. When Mihashi and Tajima look up at the scoreboard afterward, both of them get a strange feeling, thinking that something doesn't seem quite right. However, Momo calls Tajima over to the bench and he tells her that something's definitely off because the other team is hitting the ball way too accurately, almost like they know what's coming. At that moment, Momo figures out that Baijiaodai must have cracked Nishiura's signs, since their dugout is clearly visible from the other side. So, she tells Tajima that from now on, he and Mihashi need to come up with their own signals during the game. After that, it's Biju's turn to bat again, and Wada is the first one to step up. His coach simply tells him to hit however he wants. Wada quickly notices that Momo has stopped giving any signs now, and he sees that Tajima is the one signaling to Mihashi instead. When Mihashi throws the next ball, Wada hits it and scores a 3-run hit, leaving Hanai and the whole Nishiura team completely shocked and speechless. After that, Mihashi tries throwing a slider low and outside, but it ends up being called a ball. Momo watches closely and starts wondering why Mihashi is letting the count reach 2-0, since that means Wada will definitely swing at the next pitch. After a 3-run homer, Mihashi is badly shaken up and ends up giving up a walk to the next batter, unable to locate his pitches. Mihashi starts to understand how important it is for a pitcher to trust and follow the catcher's signs during the game. For the first time, Mihashi finally speaks up with confidence, and when the team hears him, they all get fired up and begin shouting with energy and excitement. They manage to get an out and now it's Kashima's turn to bat. Mihashi throws a fastball and they finally manage to corner Kashima. As the game continues, Mihashi realizes that Tajima is doing an amazing job leading the signals, and it hits him that before this, he used to put all the pressure on Abe to handle everything. Feeling more confident, Mihashi throws another pitch and it turns out to be a perfect strike. Afterwards, Biju's Kashima is replaced by Takenouchi as pitcher, and hearing that Team Nishiura is even more energized to defeat them. Next, it's Tajima's turn for the batting, and Tajima hits a slider perfectly and goes for the run, saving himself. On the other hand, Hamada is busy celebrating with his batters. Next, it's Hanai's turn to bat, and as he steps up, he notices that the pitcher's speed has dropped a bit for some reason. After him, it's Oki's turn to bat, and just like Hanai earlier, he begins to struggle and finds it hard to deal with the pitches. But then, Momo gives him a special signal to go for a hit and run play, and Oki focuses hard before finally managing to hit the ball. Right after hitting it, he runs as fast as he can like a maniac, trying to make it count, but even with all the effort he puts in, he sadly ends up getting out. At that point, everyone starts freaking out because now it's all up to Nishihiro, the reserve player, who gets the final at-bat with 2 outs already on the board. The pressure of the entire game falls on Nishihiro's shoulders, and he quickly ends up with 2 strikes. Then, when the next pitch comes, it's another strike, and with that, Nishihiro strikes out and Nishihiro loses the game. Everyone on the team starts crying and feeling really bad about the loss, but Mihashi breaks down even more when he looks at Abe and sees him hurt and disappointed. Later on, Momo gathers everyone and tells them not to stay sad for too long, because they still have the newcomers tournament and the fall tournament to look forward to, so they need to keep their heads up and keep working hard. The newcomers tournament is starting in just 2 weeks, and Hanai brings up the idea that the team should set some goals for themselves before it begins. Everyone on the team really wants to make it to the nationals, but they can't seem to agree on exactly how far they think they can go in the tournament. Only Mihashi and Tajima write down that they want to win the championship, because most of the others still feel unsure and shaken up after losing their last game. Then, Tajima suggests that they should aim to be the best in the whole country, but a few players say that setting such a high goal might feel too unrealistic and hard to believe right now. Meanwhile, Oki turns to Hanai and asks why they're even deciding on a goal, because back in middle school, their team's goal was just to win the prefectural tournament. They even made a big banner for it, so he wonders if that's the kind of goal Hanai is talking about now. Later on, Tajima asks Mihashi why he wrote down winning champion as his goal, and Mihashi suddenly starts freaking out a bit. His social anxiety kicks in and he gets really nervous and flustered. Deep down in his mind, all Mahashi really wants is to keep winning so that the team can stay together and keep playing until the very end. Later on, after practice ends, Abe sends a text to Mihashi asking him to reply right away so they can talk about something important. The team manager sees the message and tells Mihashi that she has already read his text, and then suggests that maybe he should go and visit Abe in person instead of just messaging. Hearing this, Tajima and another teammate step in and offer to go along with Mihashi so he doesn't have to go alone, knowing it might make him feel more comfortable. After a while, they all go to Abe's house and Abe's little brother greets them, excited to recognize Tajima. However, Sakiguchi thinks it's really interesting and Mihashi gets a bit confused and asks him what Abe's little brother actually meant by what he said. Sakiguchi explains that Tajima used to be in a boys' league team, and he also tells Mihashi that the senior teams are usually named after places, while fun-sounding names like the Sea Breams are usually from the boys' league. Right after that, they step into Abe's room and see him playing with his monster. Abe looks at them and says that his parents once told him that brothers aren't allowed to be on the same team, which is why he and his little brother ended up playing on different ones. Abe feels like his knee is going to heal just in time for the newcomers tournament, but it's going to be a really close call. As everyone waits for their food to come, Abe's little brother suddenly pulls Tajima aside, asking him to show some baseball moves and teach him a few tips. While they're alone, Abe turns to Mihashi and says sorry for getting injured and not being able to keep his promise to catch all of his games. He also apologizes for telling Mihashi at the start to never shake off his signs, knowing now that it wasn't the right way to help him grow. However, Mihashi tells Abe that he felt truly happy during the last game when Tajima relied on him by letting him shake off a sign for the first time. He says it made him feel important and like he was truly trusted. Mihashi then asks Abe to rely on him too, and Abe agrees. This makes Mihashi smile for the first time, and it surprises Abe, who hadn't seen Mihashi smile before. Afterwards, Mihashi gives the practice notebook to Abe, and Abe is a bit shocked when he sees that Mihashi wrote Nationals Champions as his goal. Abe says that he will also write down the same goal as his own. After they finish eating together, Mihashi and Tajima get up and head out. While they are walking back, Mihashi gets a message on his phone from Kanu that says Mihashi lost their game. Hearing this makes Mihashi feel really fired up and he tells Tajima that he wants to achieve something big at the Nationals tournament. That's it for today, my fellow men of culture. Like and subscribe the channel for more plot-filled recaps.